Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes. Welcome to the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Group meeting for May 16, 2025. I'm Roman Partea Lopez, Chair of the Disadvantaged Advisory Group. Good to see you all. I know it's been a couple months since you've seen my face here as part of the DACAG, so appreciate y'all welcoming me back, and glad to be back. I do just want to take this moment to first, apologize for my absence over these last few months. As some of you might remember, at the end of last year, I announced I was going to take my sabbatical at the beginning of this year. And yeah, it was great to kind of have the time off and be able to reset and spend time with family and come back more energized. But a lot has changed since I've returned from my sabbatical, both in the world, but as well within the organization I work at, my 9 to 5, which has impacted my availability and why I've missed a couple of additional meetings since returning from my sabbatical. But I'm here, committed and excited to be back and working with you all and be part of this great helping shape our energy future. I also just want to thank Julia and Sarah and the rest of the DACAG members for all their leadership and support during these last few months while I was out. So with that, today we'll be welcoming 2 new members. And so we'll get to introductions in a minute, but or one of the agenda items, but wanted to just flag that we'll be welcoming 2 new members. So we'll spend some time doing introductions and talking more through kind of our processes here as part of the DACAG. And then after that, we'll also be doing just kind of a quick recap of what's on our agenda. We'll be spending most of our afternoon getting to speaking around the tribal energy proceeding and then the summer reliability presentation. So with that, let's proceed to conduct roll call. Before we call roll call, just a quick reminder about Senate Bill 544. SB 544 requires members of the DACAG who are participating remotely to remain visible on camera. If you have challenges with internet connectivity during the meeting preventing you from being visible to the other members and to the public, please publicly announce the reason why you're off camera as soon as possible. All right, so with that, I'll read off the names one by one. Abimael.
Here.
Hey, Abimael, good to see you. Chelsea.
Here.
Hey, Chelsea. Chris.
Here.
Hey, Chris, welcome. Elena.
Here.
Hi, Elena. Fred. No Fred as of now. Jem. Believe. Oh, did I hear here? I see Jem. Yeah. Hey, Jem. All right, Julia.
Here.
Hey, Julia. Roman here. Sarah.
Here.
Hey, good to see you, Sarah. And tonight will not be joining us today. So thanks, everyone. We have enough members. We have quorum, so we'll be able to move forward with any voting items. All right, so we'll move on to item number 2, which is a general public comment. Agency staff will provide meeting reminders and instructions. I'll turn it over to Zara.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zara Jamshed. I'm a CPUC regulatory analyst and support staff for the DACAG. Joining us today are my colleagues Dorothy Marimi, CEC's DACAG support staff. We have our legal support from CPUC with Vanessa Baldwin, and from the CEC, Renee Webster Hawkins. And then from IT, we have Francisco Hernandez, who will be helping us out today. A few reminders. This meeting is being recorded and is being held both remotely and in person. DACAG Chair Roman Partea Lopez will be facilitating the meeting and will conduct roll call votes for items the DACAG is voting on to ensure a clear record. We've enabled WebEx's closed captioning feature to make this meeting more accessible. To use the closed captioning, click on the bottom left CC icon or press Control-Shift-A. Once captions are turned on, attendees can click the icon with the 3 dots for more options at the bottom right of the caption box to view captions and highlights. The chat feature is not available to attendees and is solely for panelists to ask for technical, procedural, or legal support questions. Now on to public comment instructions. This public comment period is an opportunity for attendees to give comments regarding any matters related to the DACAG or today's agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and will alert you when your time is up. All comments will become part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so that we can call on you. For those on WebEx, use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand, then press *6 to mute and unmute. For anyone in the room, please raise your hand. So seeing no one in the room, let's turn to WebEx. See if there are any public comments. We have Angela Islas, CCEJN. You should be able to unmute.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, good afternoon, all DACAG members, Chair Partida Lopez. It's great to see you. Great to see so many of you on the DACAG. For those that are new to the DACAG, my name is Angela Islas. I work with Central California Environmental Justice Network, CCJN for short. We are a nonprofit, community-based grassroots organization here in the San Joaquin Valley, and work very closely with a lot of vulnerable communities here in the counties of Madera, all the way down to Kern County. So I'm here today to publicly comment and elevate the Darden Clean Energy Project to your attention, and just wanted to give you all an opportunity to have this project in consideration for your review, as well as support with some of the asks that I'm going to be publicly commenting on today. So for those who are not aware of the project, the Darden Clean Energy Project is a mega solar energy project that will include about 3,100,000 solar panels deployed on 9,100 acres of agricultural land owned property, which was bought from Westlands Water District here on the West Fresno County side of the valley. And this project will be led by Intersect Power, which will be the main solar company that will be constructing and being able to manage this project. The project is going to be including a solar installation, as well as a large battery storage unit and a stepped substation. So you can only imagine just like the magnitude of like this project on top of the 9,000 acres of agricultural land. It's going to be a pretty massive project, but these panels will generate a lot of electricity that will then be sold to PG&E, and that electricity through PG&E is said to be distributed to the customers around the area. And I'm just saying customers because this is actually a very vague term. It's not really determined to what degree this electricity will be sold on this side of the county. So this being said, there are 3 affected communities that fall on the outskirts of this project. These 3 communities are Cantua Creek, El Porvenir, as well as 5 Points. Each of these communities are between, I want to say about like 3 to 5 miles away from this project. The current community benefits agreements that has been already distributed with this project. From what our organizations, including Leadership Council, have reflected from our analysis is that these community benefit agreements do not benefit the closest communities that I just named to this project, nor they are enforceable contracts. So that is a very huge concern that we had analyzed through some of these reviews of the benefit agreements. And so I want to also call to attention about the final EIR that was released, which was the staff assessment through the CEC. A lot of the assessment failed to address communities' concerns that included the need for a just transition as agricultural lands are being converted to energy production. as well, that we saw that it failed to address, it failed in a way that it inadequately addressed fire protection in the area. Right now, it is currently for a 45-minute incident response time in addressing any issues, especially fire hazards in this side of the county. So that was a concern that we saw in the assessment, that they didn't address that. But also it wasn't addressed about the 180 trucks and hundreds of passenger vehicles that will cause a major delay in traffic, but also a huge air pollution impact. So today I just asked that the DACAG put pressure on the CEC to not approve the project until and unless these concerns are adequately addressed in a just way. So again, just really wanting to bring this project to all of your attention, and happy to just provide my email information as well as my colleagues with Leadership Council to address any questions that you may have on the project. But otherwise, thanks so much for letting me publicly comment today.
Thank you. Do we have any other raised hands for public comment? Seeing no one, back to you, Roman.
Great. Thank you, Zara. And thank you, Angela, for providing those comments. Yeah, I took notes here on what you shared. You know, what I can do is during our priority areas section, and we can revisit this as a DACAG just to have a quick conversation about it. We won't be able to take any initial action right now, but at least we can bring this back up during that priority area section to figure out if there are any next steps that we can take. But appreciate the public comment, and yeah, hear your concerns with the project and the way that it's moving forward. So appreciate it. With that, let's move on then to item number 3, which is opening remarks by CEC and CPUC leadership. I'd like to acknowledge the commissioners who are joining us here today, and we welcome you to say hello and provide some brief opening remarks. So with that, we'll start first with the Energy Commission. I believe Commissioner Gallardo is not here, but Aretha from her office is joining and will provide some comments.
Hello, everyone. I'm Aretha Welch. I'm going to be representing Commissioner Gallardo's office today. Commissioner Gallardo regrets that she can't be here, but she is traveling. And so I will take notes for her, and I will pursue any follow-up actions that we have to on her behalf. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Aretha, and welcome. Always great to have you. Now let's move on to Public Utilities Commission. I see Commissioner Douglas. We'll start with Commissioner Douglas.
Hi, thank you so much. I just wanted to say hello. I'm happy to be here today, and I'll be in and out of the car a bit, but I will be tuning into the meeting, and I look forward to hearing the presentations and the discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Douglas, for joining us. Do we have someone from Commissioner Hawk's office?
I think they're having some connection challenges.
Okay. All right. So then we'll proceed with closing this item, and then if Commissioner Hawk or someone from her office.
Oh wait, I actually see that she's joined.
Oh, got it. Give her a minute. Here we go. Commissioner Hawk, I know you're probably still settling in. Welcome. We're in item number 3, opening remarks. Let me know if you want to go right now or if you want to hold off and then provide some of those opening remarks once you've settled in.
Are you able to hear me now? Oh, hello?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you, Commissioner.
Okay. Apologies about the technical difficulties, and thank you. I guess just for opening remarks, I just want to remind everyone that we're continuing to do a number of workshops in the distribution planning proceeding on things like pending load. So if there's any interest in that, please, reach out to our staff, to my office. Also, we issued a recent decision regarding disconnections that looks at issues that the utilities need to consider when they're having to make decisions about disconnecting customers. That is probably of interest to the committee. So if there's additional information that any members of the committee want, please let our DACAG staff know about that you want that additional information, and we can hopefully get that to you soon. I know that decision will be on our agenda for our June meeting, so it's coming up fairly quickly, and I just wanted to make sure that folks were aware of that as well. And then our building decarb decision was out. We've received comments, and we'll be making some revisions to that. So I wanted to put that out there as well. And again, thank you for providing some opportunity to provide opening comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Hogg. Sounds like you're on the road, so I appreciate you joining, providing those opening remarks. And I just saw a chat here from Elena, and I agree. Yeah, if there's any additional disconnection information, please do share with us, as I think we're all are probably interested in that. So we'll follow up here with staff on that request. All right. So with that, then let's see if there's any other leadership or advisors for other leadership here that would like to provide opening remarks. All right. I don't believe there is anyone else. So we'll then move on to item number 4, which is meeting minutes and approval of the April 18th, 2025 DACAG meeting minutes. Before we move to voting, first, let's see if there's any public comment on the meeting minutes for April 18, 2025.
Thank you. The DACAG now welcomes public comment on item 4. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and alert you when your time is up. All comments will become part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so that we can call on you. For those on WebEx, please use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand and then press *6 to mute and unmute. Seeing no one in the room, let's check on WebEx for any public comments. Seeing none, back to you, Ramon.
Thank you, Zara. So with that, we'll turn to DACAG discussion. I want to see if there are any comments on the meeting minutes for April 18th. Okay, so seeing no discussions or feedback on the meeting minutes, can I have someone make a motion to approve the minutes? And just a note that members who were absent, members' absence does not exclude you from voting. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me take one quick read here. The note here says, no, member absence does not exclude you from voting on this item if you have reviewed the materials. So just flagging that that's different from, I think, what we've had in the past, where you had to be present to be able to vote. So legal, can we provide some clarification there? Vanessa or Renee?
Ramon.
Hi.
Yeah, so if members have reviewed the meeting minutes and the video perhaps from the last meeting, that should be sufficient.
Okay. Thank you for that guidance, Vanessa. Great. So yeah, can I have someone make a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Elena. Can I have a second?
I will second. Sarah.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. All right. So now we'll take a roll call vote. Say aye if you're in favor, say nay if you're opposed or abstain, or you might abstain from the vote. I think if you were absent for last month's meeting and you did not review the notes or preferably the video, as Vanessa mentioned, then we are asking that you abstain from voting on the item. So we'll start with Abimael.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Chelsea?
Aye.
Thank you. Chris?
Abstain.
Thank you. Elena?
Aye.
Thank you. Fred? Absent. Jem?
Abstain.
Okay. Julia?
Abstain.
Okay. Roman? Abstain. Sarah?
Aye.
Okay. So great. So the motion passes. Meeting minutes have been approved for the April 18 meeting minutes have been approved. All right. So with that, we'll close this item and move on to item number 5. Okay, we got through a bunch of the administrative stuff. I know that always takes some time, but appreciate everyone's patience through that. And more importantly, just because we have 2 new members, right, that I know we all want to get to know. So had to go through those initial items first before we can get to this item number 5 to meet our new DACAG members. So we'll spend some minutes here getting to know Chris and to know Jem. Chris Walker and Jem Moon Montes. These 2 new members were appointed by both the CEC and the CPUC at their respective commission meetings. And we're excited to have you join us here on the DACAG. So we'll take some time to do these introductions. We'll hear first from Chris and then Jem. If you want to briefly introduce yourself, tell us some of your background and why you are interested in serving on the DACAG, so we can learn more about you. And then after that, we'll turn it over to DACAG members to introduce themselves as well. So I'll turn it over to Chris.
Hey, everybody. My name is Chris Walker. I use he, him pronouns. I'm Grid Alternatives Chief Policy and Programs Officer. So I lead Grid's policy and advocacy work as well as our program administration work. I'm based in SoCal, specifically LA County, Torrance, and lived also for 3.5 years in the Bay Area. And I've been interested in serving on the DACAG because, as you might know, Grid's mission is to build community-powered solutions to advance economic and environmental justice via renewable energy. So lots of overlap with the mandate of the DACAG, and lots of my personal story overlaps with issues that the DACAG grapples with. So I'm pleased to be able to serve alongside all of you and hope to bring my knowledge, skills, and experience to the benefit of everyday Californians grappling with a climate crisis on top of an energy affordability crisis. So happy to join you all and looking forward to doing the work alongside y'all.
Thank you, Chris. Great to have you. I'll turn it over to Jem now.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jem Montes, and I work at the People's Collective for Environmental Justice in the Inland Empire in Southern California. I am a transplant from LA County, but I have been here about 40 years, and I've really grown to love the area. I really wanted to do this because we definitely need more representation out in the Inland Empire, and I hope I can really uplift some of the voices of the community out here, and through my experience and knowledge, hopefully I'll be able to come up with solutions. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining, Jem, and apologies on mispronouncing your last name. So now I got it. So feel free to correct me if I ever mess up. So it's an open invitation to everyone. So thank you both. Really excited to have you, and yeah, now we'll introduce ourselves, and I can kick us off, and then I'll popcorn it to someone, and then we can just keep it going until we cover everyone. Roman Partida Lopez, been the chair now for, I want to say about a year, a little bit over a year or so. Started as an interim chair and then moved into the more official chair position in that time. I've been on the DACAG now for, I think I just got appointed for my last term. So this will be my third term here with DACAG. And yeah, so seeing, the evolution of the DACAG and excited to continue to be part of it. My day job, I'm a director and senior legal counsel at the Green Lining Institute. I lead our policy work on our legislative and regulatory engagements on transportation, now energy, and helping support the organization in other ways as well. I'm based in San Diego. So Green Lining is based out of Oakland, but I've been in San Diego ever since I started working with Green Lining about 7 years ago. So really trying to uplift the voices and challenges and opportunities of the border region. I think there's always representation of Southern California, LA more specifically, but or the Bay Area. And so I remember when I was looking, I was like, hey, we need to make sure that San Diego's voice is part of that, right? Because we experience our own challenges that are different from the Bay Area. And so I'm sorry, from LA or other parts, especially given the special dynamics of being a border town. So yeah, I've been excited to be part of this group and look forward to continuing to serve here. So yeah, I'll kick it over to, let me see, Abimael.
Yeah, my name is Hernandez. He, him, his pronouns. I based in Modesto, and I usually work as a policy analyst in anti-poverty policy and just looking at ways to improve policies for working people. And been part of this commission for about a year now, just really trying to uplift the voices and thinking about how to bring the voices of people in Central Valley, which we have a municipally owned utility here where I'm living, but knowing the energy challenges that face other parts of the state help me think about how we can improve energy affordability and just transition here in the Central Valley region. So yeah, nice to meet you, everybody. Sorry, nice to meet the new commissioners and glad to be here today as well.
Popping over to Julia.
Hi, everyone. Welcome, Chris and Jem. I'm Julia Hatton. I serve as the vice chair of the DACAG, previously secretary. I think I've been on the DACAG maybe since 2023. I might be getting that wrong, but that's what feels right at the moment. And in my day job, I'm the president and CEO at Rising Sun Center for Opportunity, which is a nonprofit workforce development organization doing training and employment programs for youth and adults, trying to eliminate poverty and climate change by helping people get good green jobs. And we operate in the 9 Bay Area counties. We operate in San Joaquin County, and we'll be growing into Merced and Madera this year and into more of Central California in the coming years. It's wonderful to have you here. I'll pass it to Sarah.
Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Sarah Sharpe. I am the secretary currently, and I just completed my first year on the DACAG, although I did staff it when I worked at the CPUC previously. My day job is I am the deputy executive director with the Central California Asthma Collaborative, and I'm based in Fresno, and we do a wide range of work, and I'm actually going to make a member presentation later, so I won't go too much into what we do, but we do primarily work in the 8 San Joaquin Valley counties, but we just have expanded for some of our work. So I can pass it to Abimael.
We had.
Sorry.
We'll pass it to Chelsea.
Sorry, did he already go?
Yeah. Hi, Chris and Jem, welcome. My name is Chelsea Kirk. I use she, her pronouns. This is my first term on the DACAG. Yeah, I guess Sarah, Abimael, and myself just reached our first year. I don't know, time flies. So in my day job, I'm a policy director at an organization called SAGE for short, but it stands for Strategic Actions for a Just Economy. We're a community-based organization in South Los Angeles that is membership-based, and our members are primarily low-income tenants of color who live in the South LA area, but our work sort of reaches LA City broadly and LA County unincorporated communities. And about 4 years ago, we sort of started paying attention to some of the energy efficiency and decarbonization initiatives coming to LA and California, and really asked the question, like, what kind of impacts do these policies have on tenants? Recognizing that, you know, there are tons of benefits in terms of cost savings and healthier housing and climate resilience, but also because of the sort of specific tenant landlord legal frameworks in LA and California, that there are risks posed as well. So our work has really been to kind of educate on those unintended consequences and work towards, like, incorporating safeguards into any sort of initiatives. Thank you. And I'll pass it to, last but not least, Elena.
Hi, I'm Elena Krieger. I'm the Senior Director of Research and Policy at Just Solutions, which is a national organization working on a mix of policy, legal, and research to support community partners across the country in advancing equitable and just energy and climate solutions with a focus on a number of states, including California. I particularly look at how to integrate co-benefits into clean energy transitions with a focus on things like energy affordability and climate resilience. And I'm actually an engineer by training, so I'm a bit of a battery and electricity wonk. I've been on the DACAG for 4 years now, and I think just after Oman. And I think that's it. I said I'm based out of Oakland, and I grew up a few miles from here. All right, thanks.
Great. Thank you, Elena, and thanks everyone for those introductions. Y'all did a way better job of introducing yourselves and your orgs that I completely forgot to talk about where I work. I just mentioned it. It's the rust, right? Like being away from facilitating, you know, it's like trying to walk here again and trying to run here. But I did forget to mention I'm with the Green Lighting Institute. And, you know, we're an advocacy organization based in the Bay Area, working to redress the impacts of redlining on low-income communities of color. And, you know, the interest, why I had interest in joining the DACAG was due to some of the work that we're doing around transportation electrification, but then also our work that we're doing on climate resilience, mobility, and energy affordability. All of those issues are addressed by the two agencies, right, that, you know, we advise here. And so having an opportunity to bring our perspective, both from the organization, but even, as I mentioned earlier, locally, right, from the community that I live in, was really important for me to be able to, and saw this as an opportunity, right, to be able to engage directly beyond, I think, just, you know, the traditional practices that these agencies have for engagement, right, through their dockets or through the proceedings, the regulatory proceedings, right, that at times are, you'll realize we spend a lot of time talking about, right, and figuring out ways to include not just the DACAG voices, but then additional voices. So with that, you know, I'll just transition a little bit just to talk about some of the priority areas, right, that we've identified this past year. I know some of this might have already been shared with you all, but just wanted to flag it, right, as to kind of what we try to make sure that on a monthly basis when we set up our meetings and we work with agency staff, that we're trying to align those presentations with the 8 priority areas that we've identified as a group around affordability and disconnections, building industrial gas systems decarbonizations and hydrogen, the EPIC program, reliability and resiliency issues, long-term planning, transportation electrification and zero emission transportation, tribal and community engagement and participation, and workforce training and development. So you'll see, you know, within every month agenda, right, we try to include, you know, 2 discussions that are tied to two for the most part. Sometimes we add an extra one if we're overly ambitious, but usually 2 that relate back to these priority areas. And then, you know, we have a bunch of other administrative items that we cover. One of the things we've been trying to integrate more, right, is presentations from our members, right? Julia kicked us off at the end of last year, getting to know more about the work that Julia and her organization do, and as it ties into DACAG and these agency priorities. Today, we're going to hear from Sarah, and apologies, Sarah, for not mentioning that earlier. So thank you for raising it. But Sarah will be presenting as well today. And so we're trying to do that on a quarterly basis, right? So that we can both learn, you know, engage and engage directly on these agency-specific priorities, but then also learn from each other, right, and figure out ways to elevate that work, especially as we continue engaging on the various items that we have in front of us. So I'll pause there just to see if there's any additional questions, comments, concerns, feedback that y'all want to provide before we move on to the next item. All right. Well, seeing none, welcome again. Really appreciate y'all joining. And so we'll close item number 5, move on to item number 6, which is a presentation on the tribal energy proceeding. CEC will present on 25-OIP 01, a new order instituting informational proceeding on tribal affairs and tribal energy sovereignty to inform the CEC's tribal affairs work, including work supporting tribal energy sovereignty. So we'll welcome Sierra Graves from the CEC to present on the item.
Thank you, Ramon. Appreciate that introduction and appreciate the invitation to present here. Dorothy is going to go ahead and share my slides. Awesome. Thanks, Dorothy. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to be here and to get to present on the order instituting an informational proceeding on tribal affairs and tribal energy sovereignty. My name is Sierra Graves, and I'm with the Office of the Public Advisor, Energy Equity and Tribal Affairs at the California Energy Commission. This order instituting an informational proceeding on tribal affairs and tribal energy sovereignty was approved unanimously and opened by the California Energy Commission on March 17th, 2025 at a business meeting. This informational proceeding is following the resolution committing to support tribal energy sovereignty that was adopted on March 2nd of 2023 in alignment with Governor Newsom's apology in Executive Order N-15-19. Next slide, please, Dorothy. Under Chair and Commissioner Gallardo's leadership, this order instituting an informational proceeding facilitates a forum and a formal record towards institutionalizing CEC's tribal affairs work. The OIAP allows for tribes to directly inform how the CEC works with tribes, consults with tribes, builds programs for tribes, and much more. Next slide, please. As mentioned previously, this OIAP furthers the CEC's resolution committing to support tribal energy sovereignty. Since the resolution was adopted in March of 2023, much of the work to implement the resolution has been put into action. Under the leadership of Chair and Commissioner Gallardo, we have seen increases in tribal funding, currently with more than $125 million in funding to support more than 35 California Native American tribes to date. We've seen innovations in solicitation development, expanded program eligibility, and tribal capacity funding. But this proceeding will take this work to the next level and expand upon the novel program-specific advancements, working to make these tribally led improvements commission-wide. Next slide, please. This OIP will build upon all of this tribal affairs work and will include the following deliverables, which include 2 policies. The first being an updated CEC tribal consultation policy. In alignment with the California Natural Resource Agency's tribal consultation policy update, the CEC would consider adoption of that policy and consult on energy-specific addenda. In addition, the second policy would be a tribal energy sovereignty policy as directed in the previously mentioned 2023 resolution committing to support tribal energy sovereignty. Additionally, other deliverables will include information gathering to inform best practices for working with tribes on energy projects, including tribal cultural resource considerations regarding clean energy developments. Best practices for grant funding programs to encourage and support tribal participation in many ways, including removing funding barriers. Information gathering on tribal energy economies, including tribal energy enterprise development, as well as workforce development. This scope will further be defined with the lead commissioners in conjunction with California Native American tribes throughout the state. Next slide, please. We anticipate many benefits from our continued partnership with California Native American tribes through this proceeding. And some of the benefits we anticipate will include an increase in tribal participation, partnerships, and engagement with the CEC, continuing to foster relationships statewide. Receiving input on CEC's energy work with California Native American tribes, leading to improved policies, plans, and programs. Furthering support of tribally led energy sovereignty initiatives pursuant to the resolution committing to support tribal energy sovereignty, and building a formal, publicly referenceable record to capture input received from California Native American tribes. Next slide, please. The resulting deliverables from this OIIP will be informed by tribal engagement and consultation throughout the state. The CEC will use forums such as virtual listening sessions, regional roundtables, and consultation to inform policies, best practices, and other items being considered in this OIIP. Next slide, please. In alignment with our commitment to engage tribes statewide, the CEC had a Tribal Energy Summit on March 18th, beginning discussions on some of these important topics. Next, we will be having a tribal listening session to discuss the scope and public meeting considerations with California Native American tribes, followed by 11 public regional roundtables and a statewide open tribal consultation period. After a break to draft deliverables from what we heard in the engagements that we just described and government to government consultations, a round 2 of regional roundtables will begin. Thank you for allowing me to present this to you, and I look forward to discussions that we can have on this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate the presentation. Before we move on to DACAG discussion, we'll first turn to see if there's any public comment on this item.
Thank you. The DACAG now welcomes public comment on item 6. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and alert you when your time is up. All comments will become part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so we can call on you. For those on WebEx, please use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand, then press *6 to mute and unmute. Seeing no one in the room, let's see if there are any comments on WebEx. Seeing none, back to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks again for the presentation. And for DACAG members, if you have a question, either unmute or raise your hand, which if you click kind of on the toolbar, you'll see the raise hand icon to make sure that I'm able to see it and call on you. Yeah, just maybe one comment and then 2 questions. Really appreciate this informational proceeding happening and kind of all the back end work that y'all have been doing to meet communities where they're at, right? Both by having these virtual meetings, but then the roundtables that y'all are hosting, including the summit that you held in March. I remember seeing that announcement. I was like, oh, I want to go just to kind of listen in, but I was still on my sabbatical, or maybe it was like my first day back, so I wasn't able to plan that trip accordingly. But I'm just kind of curious, like, one, like what any like high level feedback or lessons learned that you all might want to highlight that you are seeing, or common themes that you're seeing from at least those round 1 roundtables and the summit that you hosted. And then the second one is, with round 2, is the plan to go back to the same organizations that are tribal nations that you went to the first time, or like you're looking for new groups to go to?
Yeah, thank you for those questions. So I think I was a little unclear. The round 1 are currently being planned. So we have dates from the end of July that span through the middle of November. So we're still in planning for round 1. So still waiting to hear a bit from tribes to be able to say any of the themes that we're seeing so far. But the plan is after round one, you're actually getting at something that we've had a lot of discussions about. When we do round two, we want to go to kind of those same 11 regions, but ask a different tribe to be the host. So we really want to make sure that we're getting as far as we can in this very large state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. And maybe it was just me who heard wrong when you were providing your presentation there, so I appreciate that. So glad to hear round one and then round two, right, to kind of go back but having someone else potentially host there, that's great, and covering an entire state. I know it's a lot of work. One thing I wanted to flag that I think could be something to consider as well. I know the Air Resources Board is hosting kind of a tribal a tour within tribal communities as well, sometime in late June, I believe, really tied around vehicle electrification. So just flagging that, it's going to be here in San Diego. I believe you're here in San Diego as well, right? So you might already been flagged. So something else to potentially attend, right? That could help with these with the proceeding here. Great. Well, anyone else have any comments or questions? Chris, go ahead.
Thank you, Roman, and thank you, Sierra, for this work. I'm curious what the CEC's plans are for engaging tribes that are not federally recognized. As far as I understand, California has dozens of tribes, maybe as many as 65, according to the California Department of Housing and Community Development, that don't have federal recognition yet. So how does the informational proceeding relate to those non-federally recognized tribes?
Yeah, great question, Chris. So this proceeding is open to being informed by all California Native American tribes, regardless of recognition status. So the invitations will be going out to our statewide tribal list that is maintained by the Native American Heritage Commission.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing no one coming off of mute or raised hands, I want to thank you again for coming and providing an update on this proceeding. We look forward to future updates on how those roundtables go, and then how all of that information will then be utilized, right, incorporated into proceedings at the CEC and PUC. So thank you so much.
Thank you all for your time.
All right, so with that, we are actually a little bit ahead of schedule, but that's all right. We are now going to move on to item number 7, a break. So we'll have a 5-minute break here, and so please return at 1:55. Thank you. All right. Welcome back, everyone. For new members, we instituted a break and halfway through our agenda to make sure that we weren't running through 3 hours or plus at times of meetings without giving ourselves a little bit away from the screen. So so wanted just to provide a little bit more context there on why we now have a 5-minute break in between, kind of at the halfway point of our meetings. All right, so with that, we're going to move on to item number 8. CEC staff will provide a summer energy reliability overview, including anticipated summer weather and fire conditions, projected new clean energy resources, and an update on an anticipated system reliability conditions. We'll turn it over to Liz from the CEC to present on this item.
All right, thank you, Roman. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Liz Gill, and I'm the Reliability Analysis Branch Manager here at the CEC in the Energy Assessments Division. My team does a range of things, evaluating electricity supply. A lot of it is focused on electric reliability. That's a reliability analysis branch, but we also have folks that are supporting the SB 100 efforts and similar efforts. as well as DER integration and emergency response. So I was asked to provide an overview for the summer reliability outlook. I gave a similar, for those of you that were here last year, I gave a similar presentation last year in terms of the type of content and structure, but this will be updated with this summer's information. We did hold a public workshop that covered most of the information that I'm going to cover today on May 2nd. So if anyone's interested in diving deeper into any of the elements I'll be talking through today, we do have those recordings and slide decks that are posted on the website. That workshop also covered the natural gas and just the natural gas outlook. We also, most of the content that, actually I think all of the content that I'll be talking through today is also covered in our California Energy Resources and Reliability Outlook draft report. This was posted a week ago for comment. It covers the electric reliability outlook as well as natural gas and petroleum resources. We have comments due next Friday on that. So if anyone's interested in diving deeper in the material and providing any feedback on that, we do have that report up for comment right now. So with that, I will jump in. Next slide, please. All right, so I'll start off by covering the summer conditions. So these are all of the elements that feed into how we forecast electric reliability for the summer. Next slide, please. All right, so electric reliability is essentially always being able to meet the demand that we have on the system with supply and having that supply available to meet that demand. So throughout the summer, there's a number of variables that can either impact the supply side of the equation or the demand side of the equation. On the supply side of the equation, anything that could impact those resources that you need to either generate, store, or deliver energy to load could have an impact to electric reliability. So it's important for us to be aware of the fire outlook because that can largely usually impact more transmission resources. It could also impact generation resources. Being aware of the hydro outlook because hydroelectric is a pretty significant resource in California as well as in other parts of the West. Understanding how new resources are coming online that we are planning to have available to meet our demand needs, and then how the rest of the Western interconnection looks like. So in California, we do import a lot of resources. We have a dependency on imports, particularly at peak, in order to meet our reliability needs. And so it's really important for us to understand how the rest of the WEC or the Western interconnection is looking as if there are tight conditions in the rest of the Western interconnection that may impact our ability to import power. And then probably most importantly, the temperature outlook is the key driver for what impacts demand. So demand in California is largely driven by air conditioning. So particularly as it heats up on the coast, that is what drives those record conditions like what we saw in summer 2022. Next slide, please. All right, so I'll walk through most of these. So we do have the seasonal temperature outlook from the National Weather Service for most of the summer. So we are looking at above average conditions across or throughout the West this summer. This does not show the June temperatures, although June does tend to be less tight. We tend to have more resources available in June for various reasons. June is also expected to warm up quite quickly. So we are expecting above average temperatures in California as well as the rest of the Western interconnection. So that's something that we'll just want to be aware of as we go into summer and kind of keep an eye out for one of those kind of west-wide type heat events like what we've seen in the past. Next slide, please. So we do not have a hydro outlook yet this year from the Department of Water Resources. We do have the drought outlook for this summer though. So the current state of the drought is, most of Southern California is in moderate to severe drought. Northern California largely is not in drought. And then the desert Southwest is in pretty extreme drought. Again, so this impacts, has some impact to our hydro as well as impacts the wildfire potential. Next slide, please. And this slide shows kind of the specific wildfire risk. So we can, right now we have the wildfire forecast for June and July. CAL FIRE gave a very detailed presentation on this. So if you're interested in kind of the details around the wildfire outlook, on this presentation, I'm really focused on electric reliability from a supply adequacy side. But as we know, wildfire can also impact kind of more of the resiliency side when we're talking about PSPS events and whatnot. We're not focused on this here, but if you're interested in the wildfire outlook, definitely recommend checking out CAL FIRE's presentation from the May 2nd workshop. So we are seeing above normal fire risk throughout kind of much of California in June and expanding into July. One thing that CAL FIRE has always elevated during their presentations at our annual workshop is that there is always some level of fire risk, even if it's normal or below normal in California. So just because it's normal doesn't mean that there is not fire risk, and just because it's below normal, which we unfortunately don't see on this map, just because it's below normal doesn't mean that there's not fire risk at all. So we will be keeping an eye out on how fire may impact transmission capabilities and our ability to bring imports into the state. Next slide, please. All right, and this slide, which now as I look at it, I realize I didn't put units on it. My PhD advisor would have killed me. So this slide shows the resources that we're expecting to have online before summer. So we, I guess we kind of count on in our analysis that all of the resources that are projected to come online before July 1 are going to show up. We do tend to do some sensitivities that look at supply chain delays to see what the impact of those delays might be on our reliability outlook. We are expecting about 2,000 megawatts of resources to come online before June 1 compared to the end of last year. And most of that is battery storage, which is really important for electric reliability because it can help us meet those net peak hours when the sun is starting to go down, but the load from air conditioning loads have not started to go down because it's still pretty warm out. Next slide, please. All right, and so these are the elements that feed into our summer stack analysis, at least the major ones being the demand forecast, and then the resources that we're expecting to see online. Next slide, please. So just to describe what a stack analysis is, so this is a tool that we use to compare what the expected generation availability is against the forecasted electric demand. And so we do, and this helps us to identify whether we have a need for contingency resources. So if we see a gap where our projected demand plus some kind of, plus a planning reserve margin to account for variability in demand with extreme heat events and generator outages, then we know that we really need to make sure that we have some of those contingency resources available to help keep the lights on should one of those extreme events occur. And so this slide was pulled from that workshop where we had 3 different stack analyses from 3 different agencies that were presented. I'll be talking through the results from the Energy Commission stack analysis, but the California ISO and the CPUC also presented stack analyses from their analytical efforts. And there is good news, there is consistency across the outlooks from the different agencies. Next slide, please. So on the slide after this, I will walk through what the projected, I guess you could call it surplus or kind of wiggle room that we have, or shortfalls across different scenarios. We look at 3 different scenarios. The first is average conditions. So this aligns with what the current resource adequacy planning standard is. So this is what load serving entities at the CPUC are required to contract up to. And so this accounts for operating reserves, which must be maintained by the ISO, the potential for outages of those resources that are in the stack, as well as demand variability above the 1 and 2 or our average year forecast. And then across all of these, we do consider coincidental fire risks. So we have seen in the past where a fire is taking down a major transmission line, and then we lose 3,000 megawatts of imports into the state at one time. We also evaluate a 2020 equivalent event. And so this looks at whether we have enough capacity to ride through a heat event that is similar to what we experienced in 2020, where the ISO did experience rotating outages for a couple of hours over 2 days. And then we also look at the equivalent for a 2022 event. So again, this is the amount of asking, do we have enough capacity to ride through, assuming that those resources minus the outages are available. Should we experience an event similar to what we experienced Labor Day weekend in 2022? Next slide, please. All right, so we have a lot of numbers on this slide. The most important numbers on here is if you look at the first table on the left, and we look at the bottom, we see surplus / shortfalls. So everything above this, the supply section is adding up all of the resources that we have available or expect to have available. And then the demand is what the peak demand forecast is for September. And so if we do the math, kind of the difference between the demand and what is available, plus the reserve margin over that demand, then we can see whether we have a surplus or a shortfall for those equivalent events. So the good news is that our analysis shows that across all of these events, then we do have sufficient supply and a little bit of a surplus to ride through those. Under average conditions, we're looking at about 5,500 megawatt surplus, ranging up to that 2022 equivalent event where we'd have about a 1,300 megawatt surplus. With that, however, we do want to be, wary is not the right word, mindful that if there were to be coincident impacts from fire, we could be looking at a contingency need under one of those extreme heat events. So were we to experience a 2020 equivalent event, we'd be looking at about 1,000 megawatt need for contingency resources, and then about 2,600 megawatt contingency resource need for a 2022 equivalent event. Next slide, please. All right, so this final section will look at the contingency resources that the state plans for. In addition to contingency resources, there is a number of kind of summer reliability preparation exercises that the agencies go through. There's very strong coordination between the ISO, the CPUC, the CEC, Governor's Office, DWR. So all of the agencies working together to make sure that everyone knows the game plan should we end up in an emergency event sometime over the summer. Next slide, please. All right, and so this slide lays out the contingency resources that we expect to have available. The first class of contingency resources are strategic reliability reserve resources. And so these are resources that are funded through the AB 205 Strategic Reliability Reserve. There are 3 components of the reserve. The first component contracts with utility scale resources, largely contracts with utility scale resources that would otherwise be retired. This is DWR's Electricity Supply Strategic Reliability Reserve Program and State Power Augmentation Program. That's where the bulk of our contingency resources come from. We also have the CEC's Demand Side Grid Support Program. So this is a program that enables effectively demand response to support a steering reliability need. And then the CEC also has the Distributed Electricity Backup Assets Program. We do not have megawatts currently online, but there are projects that have been funded. They will be online. There'll be a few. You can see in the bottom that there's a few that will be online next summer and then in 2027. There are also a number of CPUC ratepayer programs and available capacity from resources that are contracted through kind of additional capacity that is available through CPUC contracted resources. And then we have non-programmatic options. So balancing authorities. So that's the California ISO, Balancing Authority of Northern California, which is mostly SMUD. And then there's different balancing authorities throughout the West. Balancing authorities really try to support each other when one of their neighbors are in trouble. So we assume that we can count on at least 300 megawatts from other balancing authorities. If it's a extreme west-wide heat event, that may be more challenging. And then in the past, we've also been able to get a few megawatts out of thermal resources beyond their limits under a DOE 202C exemption. So in total, we're looking at about 4,500 megawatts in September, which is kind of the most vulnerable time for the system typically. Usually it's that beginning of September, Labor Day time that we tend to see kind of the biggest impacts on reliability. Next slide, please. All right, and that is what I have as an overview of the summer reliability outlook. Again, we have more detailed information in the workshop materials from May 2nd, as well as the California Energy Resources and Reliability Outlook. We call it CERO, the CERO report, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Liz, for the presentation. Before we dive into DACAG discussion, let's first turn to see if there are any public comments on the item.
Thank you, Ramon. The DACAG now welcomes public comment. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and alert you when your time is up. All comments will become part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to. Those on WebEx, please use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those joining by phone, press star 3 to raise your hand, then press star 6 to mute and unmute. Seeing no one in the room, go to WebEx. It looks like we have a hand up from Natalie Delgado. should be able to unmute.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Natalie Delgado, and I'm a policy associate with the Central California Environmental Justice Network. And I'm here to elevate concerns regarding the Darden Clean Energy Project and summer reliability. As mentioned by my colleague Angela Islas earlier, the Darden Clean Energy Project is a mega solar project that's going to include almost 3 million solar panels deployed on 9,100 acres of land. When reviewing the draft environmental impact report, we submitted comments alongside with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability to uplift the fact that there was no extreme heat island effect analysis. The project will be sited between the communities 5 Points, Cantua Creek, and El Porvenir. All communities are located in the San Joaquin Valley, which experiences some of the highest temperatures in the state of California. In addition to this, many residents within these communities experience limited access to cooling infrastructure. Either they do not have the proper infrastructure, such as HVAC systems, or rely on swap coolers, which do not have any way of filtering pollution from outside. When CEC staff responded to our comments raised, they stated that there was no additional analysis required for this impact because preliminary studies have pointed to heat from solar panels dissipating quickly. However, those studies have only examined the extreme effect of solar farms of only 1 megawatt. The Darden Energy Project will include 1,150 megawatts. When we think of summer reliability, we need to ensure that frontline communities receive stable access to power in times of extreme heat, especially since it is not clear whether the magnitude of these solar panels will increase surrounding temperatures. Today, I reiterate that the DACAG put pressure on the CEC to not approve the project until and unless these concerns are adequately assessed and studied. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Seeing no other hands raised, I'll turn it back to you, Roman.
Thank you, Zara, and thank you, Natalie, for that comment. For DACAG members who have a comment, please feel free to raise your hand so I can call on you during this section. Yeah, thanks again for the presentation. I mean, I think this has become now an annual presentation that the DACAG receives, right, to kind of give us that outlook, right, to what the summer is going to look like. I appreciate the degree of detail, right, that's included in this overview. And I think one question that I have here, and it somewhat kind of is building off of what Natalie here asked about, but really thinking about this group, right, and I think our goal, right, to ensure that those in disadvantaged and low-income communities, rural communities, right, as identified in our charter, are ready and prepared and would be in case of an impact, right? Like, how can we then translate what you're sharing here with us, right, and to our communities to let them know, like, hey, you know what, this is the type of preparedness that we're going to need, right, because we're expecting June and July to potentially be hotter than anticipated, and so we might be running into situations, even with the extra capacity that we might have. How are we then communicating this to them? And then additionally, in the report, and I didn't go through all of it, but like to this point around resiliency and cooling centers, and that, like, through this process, like, are there any identified like recommendations around, like, hey, these particular communities in the state are going to be the most impacted during the summer, right? And if they are there additional then recommendations that are made of, like, because of that, these regions are in need of climate resiliency centers or other resources to help ensure that they're going to be able to deal with really hot summers?
Great questions. So on the first one about like kind of what the message is, so the overall message is that we like to say we're cautiously optimistic. We're more optimistic. I don't want to say more cautiously optimistic because it makes it sound like we're more cautious. We're more optimistic, but still cautiously optimistic going into this summer than we have in previous summers. That being said, it's important when it is hot to pay attention to whether there's a flex alert that comes online, and then to conserve power where possible, where it doesn't impact health and safety during those evening hours where it's still quite warm, but again, the sun has gone down. Usually anytime there's a flex alert issued, there are times that are associated with it. I don't remember what the times are off the top of my head. On the kind of resiliency question and identifying which communities are most vulnerable during these types of events. So with system reliability, it's really an overall system supply issue. So it wouldn't be one particular community that would be at higher risk of rotating outages than other communities. There are some communities where if you are on a particular block, like with a fire station, you wouldn't be exposed to rotating outages because they're essential infrastructure that has to be kept online. So in the event that there is rotating outages, they're usually planned for only no more than an hour or two, and they literally rotate across different blocks to kind of spread out the impact. So it's not just one community that is more impacted than another community. That being said, I think we can take that feedback on identifying, who may be at more risk or be most vulnerable to those impacts, particularly when we think about kind of the extreme heat and the types of events that happen where we may see outages due to supply issues, because it is typically an extreme heat event, and in that situation, then it is essential that people are able to have access to cool environments.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I think that'd be really, really helpful. And then maybe just adding one more thing here before we turn it over to Sarah. I mean, building off of like the question around the impact of solar panels, right? And the more that we have online, like, I'm just really curious, like, is that at all factored into this analysis that y'all do? And if it's not, then like, who then is technically tasked with, you might not know this, but technically tasked and with ensuring that, like, as we get more solar panels on our grid, and then there are in spaces where are next to communities, that they're being accounted for in the potential impact when it comes to heat?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll answer it to the best of my ability, but I think it's also a complex question. There's planning for electricity is very complicated, and there's a lot of different stages within it. So within our analysis, we account for the resources that we're expecting to come online based on whether they're in the interconnection queue. So these are resources that have largely, gone through the permitting process. They've gone through all of the studies with the utilities and the California ISO, and been awarded some type of capacity in order to be available to be contracted. For the longer term planning, most of that happens at the CPUC's IRP process. That's where they're kind of looking out into 10 years out. What are the resources that we're going to need to be available online? We actually have a great flow chart that looks at how all of the different processes connect with each other. When it comes to community impacts and community benefits, I suspect that most of that is really through would be active through the permitting process. And I think that's the comment that I think Natalie that has her comments for the permitting process, I believe, and someone else might be able to speak more to this. That's where typically you see the community benefits, because those are usually, we have the opt-in process at the CEC. They're required to incorporate community benefits through that. Of course, whether everyone is in agreement that they're the right ones, that's a whole other thing. And then when it's done at the county level, that's done at the local level. So they're kind of, complicated, very number of different processes. On the community benefits, I would say it's probably the permitting processes that you'd want to be paying attention to.
Hey, thank you. That was helpful. Well, Sarah, Chris, and then Elena.
I was wondering if Chris had a comment on the solar panel heat island effect or anything. I don't know if you're going to comment on that.
Tangentially, more the connection between the fact that these extreme heat events are necessitating us keeping on fossil generation, which may then exacerbate extreme heat events. So less about solar and more about the fossil generation.
Yeah. So what we tend to see in modeling that go out long term, they do tend to retain fossil facilities for capacity value. So for usage when you do have those peak heat events. But what we see is that over time, we're still seeing the generation from those where you're actually emitting the GHGs go down. And so those plants are being used less and less and less, but there still might be the potential for them being needed during those extreme events. That's what we're seeing in the planning processes, at least from like a cost optimization side.
Yeah, and just one follow-up. Does the state dispatch these emergency generation resources with any sort of environmental preference? Or is that determined more on a geographic basis, or what does that look like?
For the emergency resources, those, if possible, we try to dispatch the cleaner resources first. Oftentimes it ends up being like there are some resources that need more lead time in order to be turned on than other resources. And so you have to make a decision on those resources early. A lot of the clean resources are dispatched quite easily, which means that those are the resources that are going to be most available during a sudden onset event. So we try to plan for the cleaner resources to come online first. A lot of times what you'll find once you're actually in the heat of the event is that you need everything available and online. So that's the goal in theory. Whether we're able to do that might differ a little bit.
Ramon, can I do my question now? It is on the same topic actually, because I noticed on slide 29 the increase in natural gas resources between May and June, and I wasn't clear on if that means that, or like the capacity, I think it was in resources that you.
Oh, yeah.
Were you showing that we're getting a new natural gas?
Yeah. So this
online, or I thought that we were not doing that.
Yeah. So I probably should have used a different table than this one because it was corrected on something else. So that's actually showing. So this data was pulled from the interconnection queue. I should flag this for the team because I pulled this out of the report and I think we corrected it in the slide deck and not in the report. Those batteries so those natural gas numbers are actually battery storage at a natural gas plant, but the way that it's tagged in the ISO system, it shows up as natural gas. So in real life, it is not natural gas. It is battery storage at a natural gas plant. And we need to make that correction in the report because that was flagged to us when we walked through these with the ISO. Yeah,
that would be very important for public information.
Thanks for flagging that.
I think that was my only question that hasn't already been asked. Thank you.
Elena, go ahead.
So that was one of my questions also. I had another one, which I was wondering, and I think you sort of answered this, but it seemed like there were a bunch of programs that might be reflecting distributed energy storage, but I couldn't quite tell to what degree existing distributed energy storage had an opportunity to provide reliability benefits was being calculated?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm looking at the slide on my end. So I believe there's an opportunity through the demand side grid support program. And then on more of like the customer side for IOU customers, if they had batteries, I think that they can participate through the emergency load reduction, like Power Saver Rewards program. Distributed energy backup assets is looking at bringing new resources online. And so I believe that there's an opportunity for distributed storage through that program, but it would be new resources, not not existing. Yeah.
And that's an additional new incentive program. Could you like stack that with SGIP or something?
That's a great question that we could bring back to the READY staff, the staff that is working on that program.
Cool. I'd love to hear more about it. Another question I have, if no one else is going to go, is that you talked a lot about electricity forecasting and how you didn't have hydro forecasting yet, and you're relying on these national data sets for drought and things like that. And I was wondering if you've had any problems accessing the data that you need.
We have not yet. So we don't have the hydro data yet because it's based, we did the analysis a little bit earlier than normal this year. And so we have to wait for DWR to do like their final snow survey and then to run all of their models for their system to see if there's any changes in the pumping loads and the hydro availability on their system. As far as kind of national data, it's I'm not sure what the change on like the weather forecasting and kind of that aspect. There was a question at our May 2nd workshop to the California ISO, who has, relies on weather data on a day-to-day basis as they're doing their forecasting. She did mention that they are planning to kind of increase their staffing within the ISO and do more in-house if they lose access or information that has come from the National Weather Service in the past.
I'd love to flag from like at this point if that happens, or if there's a way to track how that is happening across like different programs. I think that would be, I don't know how to do that, but I think that would be really valuable and interesting to see what those impacts are and how you're responding to them.
Yeah, and we can, I think there's kind of like a broader question on data from the federal agencies that we use like in electricity planning. So all of it, yeah. All of the data. So we have been tracking it. I know that there's some efforts to kind of back up the data that is out there. Fortunately, at the CEC, we do have, at least for California, have data that we already collect across California. And of course, we want to reevaluate what those things are. If there's things that are collected at the federal level that we now need and they're not being utilized at the state or at the federal level anymore. So yeah, we are keeping an eye on it. And I think as we get further along and have a better understanding of what the impacts might be, then we should probably share that out. And because I know there are lots of organizations that also use that data to support their analysis and their advocacy and whatnot.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, not awesome. Hopefully you get access to it forever, but if something happens, we'd love to know. I'm going to ask one last question, which is, I was wondering whether you take into account smoke in your forecast as a possible impact.
Not directly.
That smoke output on solar panels.
Yeah, not directly. It could be indirectly incorporated into like outages, and on the demand side, you would see load go up if you have smoke that's impacting rooftop solar. So it's not a direct impact that we consider, but it would kind of fall into those categories, which are kind of big.
Yeah, and thinking just from like a risk standpoint, there was that 2020 combined like massive smoke event and wildfires combined with a heat wave. And I think my solar panels at the lowest output that they've ever had. Yeah.
Contributes to the higher load total. Yeah.
Chris, go ahead.
Hopefully a minor one. Thanks for all the great information so far, Liz. But you illuminated we have 3 agencies doing stack analysis. Fortunately, those analyses are in accord. What if they weren't? What would that imply in terms of states' resource adequacy planning, et cetera?
So if they weren't in alignment, we would be doing a lot of work to understand why they're not in alignment. So it could be, I mean, so we do a lot of work to make sure that we all have an understanding of what the resources that are coming online, of the demand forecasts, and of what the different risks are. And so, yeah. So I guess if they weren't aligned, we would be trying to understand what the difference is, and then kind of elevate. And then if we had maybe disagreements in kind of our approach, or we were trying to elevate different risks through our analyses, then we would be sure to kind of speak to what the differences across those would be.
Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions? All right, seeing none, we want to thank you again, Liz, for coming and presenting this outlook here. I think as I mentioned at the top, like this is something now that we've done now the last few years, and it's extremely helpful to kind of prepare, right, to see what's to come, right, this summer. And I think there's still maybe some outstanding areas, right, around like the hydro data that needs to be incorporated, and then just even thinking about what we talked around the most vulnerable communities and trying to identify that, right? And that might be not too late in the process here, but I think finding ways to identify that, I think, would be really important, right? If it's possible for this year, but especially moving forward, so that we can be prepping.
And I think we can probably, in the future, leverage some of the work that our energy equity indicators team is doing, and kind of see where we can do some like integration with the reliability work, and what that means layered on with the energy equity indicators.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the feedback and kind of the opportunity to walk through this today. Really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, and that'd be great. I think doing that integration would be really helpful. And yeah, and if that's doable, let us know, and we'll welcome you back to have a deeper discussion.
Well, I'll need to check in with them. Probably not for this report, but we'll definitely think about that for next year's update.
Yeah, I wrote that down, and I'll flag it in our notes for a future meeting here. But appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and thanks again.
All right, thank you all.
All right. So with that, then we'll close item number 8. We'll move on to item number 9. Which are here our very own Sarah Sharpe will be presenting to us a just transition for asthma prevention, highlighting the connections between energy justice and public health advocacy in Central California. Take it away, Sarah.
Thanks, Roman. So I just want to preface this that my slides are not as beautiful as Julia's. So she set a really high bar, and I was like, oh, I need to have my marketing guy work on these slides. But thank you. As I mentioned, my day job is I am the Deputy Executive Director at Central California Asthma Collaborative. And so I'm going to present a little bit of background about how I see the overlap between our work at the Asthma Collaborative and the work that the DACAG does. Next slide. And I'm going to talk a little bit about CCAC in general. So just as a background, we are an organization that was founded in 2011 the name implies. We were a collaborative of various asthma coalitions. They were like county based. And in 2013, we incorporated as a 501c3. And that, I believe, was just the Fresno Madera coalitions merged and founded us. And our new vision now is our board just approved this in January, is we envision a healthy, resilient communities where all people can breathe clean air and thrive. And our mission is advancing health equity and environmental justice by empowering Central California communities through services, research, advocacy, and data-driven solutions to reduce the burden of asthma. We do currently have a staff of over 60 full-time employees currently. Next slide. And just to get an idea of our service territory, we have 6 regional offices currently. The newest one is Sacramento, which I believe we opened almost a year ago now. But we have offices in Sacramento all the way down to Bakersfield. Next slide. And I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible because I know we don't have much more on the agenda, so we can probably adjourn early. I don't go too long. So these are the program areas. These are our divisions. We have a climate equity and environmental justice division, a community health division, and actually we call it environmental health research division. And within those, we have different program areas and teams. And so almost all of these actually touch on different parts of the work that the CPUC and the CEC undertake. So I'm going to cover a little bit of each, but primarily touching on the energy and transportation and how it intersects with our asthma remediation program, and then a little bit about research. So next slide. Okay, so I'm going to go first into our comprehensive asthma remediation and education services, just to let you know how this is kind of the bread and butter of the work that we do. And obviously it's in our community health. Next slide, community health division. And we are contracted with Medi-Cal managed care plans to provide asthma preventive services and asthma remediation community supports in these counties, 13 counties in Central California. And those are the plans that we're contracted with. Next slide. This is just a little background of the most recent asthma rates in the California rate as compared to the counties that we serve. And you can see that in most places that we serve, the rate of asthma prevalence is higher than the state average. And Tulare is somewhat of an outlier, which we find odd and are still trying to figure out what that's about. Next slide. So our asthma remediation program, we have community health workers that go into the home and do a home assessment with the patients, and they are referred to us. So they are asthma patients who have uncontrolled asthma by various definitions defined by Medi-Cal. And so we go through and do an assessment of the home and then recommend various tools and resources to help the patients improve their indoor environment at their home. Next slide. And so these are some pictures of some of the things that we can provide at different times. So we actually are able to provide range hood replacements in many cases. There is a allowance in Medi-Cal for minor home repairs over the lifetime. And the amount is only generally enough to replace a range hood or fix the range hood. And we find that the improved ventilation and indoor air quality is important. So that's why we do that. We just reached our 6,000th patient in May, and May is Asthma Awareness Month. So it's a good month for me to be doing this presentation. So we're very excited that we have served 6,000 patients now, over 6,000 patients now. And this is a little bit about the demographics of those that we have served. And some of the counties, I will highlight that we just started serving more recently, and that's probably why their representation is lower here. In Kern, we have a really great relationship with the plan, the health plan down there. And so we get really good referrals from them. And you can see the ethnic backgrounds and the age groups. And it's interesting because when we started this program, we thought it would be more children, but it's actually pretty evenly split between children and adults that we serve. And also, I'll just mention that the official program, this is a program that was just created. And so we're one of the first CBOs or organizations providing this service. And so we've only been doing it since 2023, officially. We did some pilots previous to that, which kind of built the case for why the state did decide to implement this program. But that's why, and so we served those 6,000 patients in those 3 years or so. Next. So this, now I'm going to get to kind of how we see the overlap with our energy work and building decarbonization specifically. So the home conditions that we collect when we're in the home, when our community health workers are in the homes, are some of these are just some of them, but they're the ones that I find most interesting and important for, you know, input for us to advocate for equitable building decarbonization, for example. So we do know how many own versus renting. We know their range hood status, we know their HVAC status, and we know what stove type they have. And there are quite a few other things, but these are what I find most relevant and actually very interesting. I wasn't able to get our current numbers, but the HVAC number of broken or non-existent HVAC systems is very high. I did this for Kern County. I think it was 30% of them, which I found very high. And so that I see as a huge opportunity for us to leverage some of the state programs that are being developed for building decarb and or other, you know, heat pump programs to help a lot of households get energy efficient heating, ventilation, air conditioning. Next slide. And I think some of the CCEGen commenters mentioned the problem of evaporative coolers or swamp coolers and the fact that they don't generally have the capacity to filter the air when it's bringing it in from outdoors. And so that's one of the areas that we find very important when we're looking at upgrading people's HVAC systems, is that it would have ability to filter the air that's or purify it, however you want to call it, but coming from the outside, especially because we have such poor air quality in our region and especially during wildfire seasons. I'm going to talk, this is just our climate equity, environmental justice kind of portfolio. We work on energy, air, and transportation, both electric vehicle, I guess that's not electric vehicle, non-electric vehicle, but it's like personal vehicles versus, you know, industrial or heavy duty. Next slide. So in our air area, this is, I'm just going to quickly touch on this next. We do quite a bit of community engagement as part of AB 617 or the next step of AB 617. So we have been working with community steering committees and many of these communities listed here to develop their own clean community emission reduction plan. And something that we've added on recently is having conversations with them and identifying their priorities for climate and energy issues. So not only looking at what their local air pollution sources are and their concerns are, but also talking to them about what kind of climate and energy initiatives they'd like to see, like if they need more, would they be interested in more electric vehicle charging infrastructure, or is their community in need of a climate resilience hub or a cooling center, or et cetera. Next slide. And in the photos, you can see that these are mostly photos of people who've installed air monitors. We have an air monitoring network, which next slide. Okay, Yes, so we have a community air monitoring network that we've established with over 400 low-cost quality air quality monitors, and then we have 6 high-performance regulatory grade monitors that we've been able to purchase with different grants from US EPA and California Air Resources Board. And so we actually aggregate the data from all the government sources, the official sources like the Air District, the Valley Air District, and EPA and CARB. But we also add in a layer of the ones that we also install with community members and in schools. And so that we have developed an app that's available on Apple and Android. So anybody who's in the San Joaquin Valley, I hope you have it because you can check any given moment. You can look at the map and you can also subscribe to specific monitors that are nearest to either yourself or your kid's school or whatever. But that's another aspect of our air work. Next slide. This is just an advertisement. Get the app if you live in our valley. Transportation work. Next. Yeah, it's fine. Next. So as I mentioned, we have been doing electric vehicle equity work for quite a long time. Right now, we are partnering with Community Housing and Development Corporation on the Driving Clean Assistance Program. And we have a team of EV specialists who help folks in low-income disadvantaged communities fill out applications for electric vehicle programs, incentive programs, which includes finance. Oh, why am I creating the word? Financial counseling and other benefits. Next. I would highlight there that this is the program that kind of has expanded our reach because we are the lead in finding, we are building a network of other CVOs all the way up to the northern border and including some of the Central Coast. So we have 42 counties that we cover for that program. And then we also work on clean freight. Here's a picture of our Clean Freight Leadership Institute or study group. When we visited Watt EV one of the first electric truck stops that they've built in California in Bakersfield. And we're working on zero emissions policy work in that arena. And next. In the energy sector, next. Primarily, we focus on building decarbonization, as I mentioned, because we see a huge possible benefit if we can figure out how to bring it into the homes of our asthma patients. And we are part of the Building Energy Equity and Power statewide coalition. That is a group of EJ groups working on building decarbonization. And we are advocating for whole home retrofits. So we, as a policy, prefer not to do building decarbonization on a piecemeal basis. We really want to advocate for homes to get, especially low-income homes, to get like the whole package and replacing all fossil fuel burning appliances with electric, including rooftop solar with battery storage so that they make sure that they're saving on their bills, and also energy efficiency, weatherization, and any other remediation. Next, I'm almost done. We have an Energy Leadership Institute, which is just a group of other grassroots organizations across the valley, the San Joaquin Valley. We had about 21 different organizations participate in at least a few of the sessions. And this is actually funded with our PUC Equity, Engagement, and Education grant. And we went through a process of learning about energy issues and the decision-making process and the role of the different agencies like CPUC. And we continue to engage with them in their respective communities. That was part of what I talked about in the air section, meeting with communities about their priorities related to energy. Next. So I'm talking really fast, but I'm trying to get this through. And this is the last part. I'm just going to mention a few. We do a lot of environmental health studies just related to air quality and health in general. But lately, we've been taking on quite a few research projects that are related to mostly building decarbonization. So I'm just going to highlight a few of those. And this is our research division. And we often partner with major universities and institutions as kind of their field office data collection center. And so we have phlebotomists that collect blood. We collect all kinds of specimens for depending on what kind of study it is. But we also will do the recruitment of the households in our area, which is highly impacted. And we, so next. One that I thought was most interesting to you all, and I don't know if we've ever had it presented here to the DACAG, but we were a part of a study that was a follow-up from the San Joaquin Valley pilots. And so we had a subset of those houses that was funded by HUD, and it was a Healthy Homes project. And so they compared in 4 of the pilot communities, they compared the homes that got electric appliances and the control or propane using households and compared the indoor air quality. And next, we have some in, I think, early findings, but I don't know if they are the final findings. Next slide. They were presented at a conference, and I have the reference down below on the last slide, but the preliminary findings, and I should have put preliminary, I was reminded by our data analytics director that we should say this is always preliminary, it's not final yet, is that in the first 84 homes, there was significantly reduced NO2 levels in the electric homes compared to the propane gas stove homes. And NOx levels also mirrored this trend. PM 2.5 was not as different. Next. Another study that we have been working on and are in still, I think we just finished recruitment, but it's still undergoing or still happening, is we recruited, enrolled, and randomized 120 homes of children with asthma. And then we replaced their stoves with electric induction ranges in half of those. So we don't have the findings of this one yet, but we are measuring various lung health and indoor air quality measures for data. Next. That's it. So that's a little, I would have a few other research studies that we participated in. One, I think I've mentioned to some of you, is that we were part of a carb propane use study that we helped recruit and do a survey. It was mainly a survey. And we also are just launching a panel optimization project with Build It Green, and it is funded through CEC, but we have quite a few different things. So I will end it there, and thank you for your time. I tried to go as fast as I could. I'll take questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And we have plenty of time, so there was no need to go quickly, but I really appreciate all the information you shared. I definitely learned a lot, and I have a couple questions. But before we jump into DACAG discussion, first let's turn to see if there's any public comments on this item.
Thank you, Ramon. The DACAG now welcomes public comment on item 9. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and we'll alert you when your time is up. All comments will become part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so we can call on you. For those on WebEx, use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand, and then press *6 to mute and unmute. And for those in the room, just raise your hand. Yes.
Hello, this is Judith E. Clay, and I'm in the room and taking advantage of being in the room to ask a question. I'm staff with the PUC, actually. And Sarah, thanks for the great presentation. I'm just curious if you have any data yet about the impacts of COVID on asthma rates or on outcomes in the population that you studied. Thanks.
I am not aware of any of those studies, although I definitely know some of our studies were ongoing during that time. So we may see something later, but as far as I know, we have not been involved in any specific studies looking at that. Would have been a good idea, but I think we were all just trying to survive at that time. So and with the lead up time that it takes to get a research project going might have been difficult. But I can look into that. I do know that there's a lot of data coming out now about there's a spike in valley fever in our region, and over the last, I think, 2 years, and it may be related to the flooding that we had when the Tulare Lake flooded and stirred up a lot of the dust because it is a fungal disease.
Yeah, thank you. We are always very interested in valley fever as well because it's been associated with solar workers. So I hope there's some good data that you're able to pull on that as well. Thank you.
I did mention that at the Darden community meeting to the workers. Hopefully they're aware.
Thank you. Seeing no raised hands in the, oh wait, we do have a raised hand from Eliza Correa. You should be able to unmute. Oh, we couldn't hear you. You should be unmuted, able to give your comment.
I'm trying. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Hi, sorry. Great presentation, Ms. Sharp. I'm just wondering, you mentioned about the services you provided. Were these referrals from specific asthma client patients, or are they like provided to maybe patients with high allergies or things like that? And what are their income guidelines they have to remain within to also qualify for some of those potential upgrades?
Yes, currently we are referred patients who do have diagnosed asthma, and they are referred from their health plan. So, their doctor or their health plan has their medical records, and so they do have to be eligible for Medi-Cal. That is provided primarily for low-income populations. We are exploring now how to expand our services to, general population who has asthma and would like to self-refer. People can self-refer, but right now, if we are going to provide the full home assessment and the remediation tools, we do need them to be Medi-Cal qualified.
So that would be the primarily income, not income source, but source of qualification. They would have to have 1 asthma and 2 Medi-Cal.
Yes.
Okay. And how are you leveraging, are you leveraging this with other programs so that they could qualify for, like you said, the heat pump water heater or the HVAC? And I know you mentioned the cook induction units, the electric cooking induction units. They're able to get things, all of those types of?
We have not successfully done that yet, but that's kind of what the next level or next step of what we're working on. Like I said, we've only been doing the home visits for about 2.5, 3 years. And a lot of those programs like equitable building decarbonization hasn't officially launched yet. The Clean California and others, we are in the process now of trying to fully understand the program requirements and figure out how to help our patients qualify for those. So that's that's what we're working on.
That sounds like a wonderful program. Okay, thank you so much. And it was a really helpful and useful bit and tool to understand about.
Thank you. And I would say that the asthma visits with the community health workers and the asthma remediation is happening in other parts of the state with other organizations. You just, I think, need to look up CalAIM. So it's CalAIM. and you can find the providers in other parts of the state. But I think we're one of the first organizations to get it off the ground.
Okay, so you're strictly, well, I don't want to say strictly, Central Valley type region. Is that where your program would be?
Yes, I had the map in my slides. I don't remember which slide it was, but the 13 counties are where we provide that service now, and we are hoping to expand it soon in this year or next year to a few more counties that may include Merced, Mariposa, and some of the Central Coast. But we're still in negotiations or discussions with that health plan.
And you said to look through the Cal AIM, correct? To maybe be able to find some organizations within other jurisdictions that may be able to help. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Great. I'm seeing no more raised hands. I'll turn it back to you, Roman.
All right. Well, thank you for those questions, and also thank you, Sarah, for the presentation. Very informative. Like I said, there was no need to rush because I wanted to make sure you were able to cover everything, but you did. Again, very impressive work that CCAC has been doing over the years, right? And had the pleasure of working with Kevin before, and then now getting to work and share space here with you. Two things that I wanted to ask about. The first one, I mean, I think trying to tie it to the conversation we were having today, right, around like the summer reliability presentation, right? Knowing that you have some access to home data and potentially, I'm not sure, like medical device needs or things like that, right? Like, is that data being collected to potentially then help support like, hey, these regions, because of a higher amount of there's a higher need because of the fact that there are more medical supported equipment in those homes, that there is a need to ensure that we're providing the needed energy. Like, is that data that you all are collecting and potentially sharing out? And then the second one is, well, maybe I'll pause there first and see before asking the second one.
I think there's unlimited potential for what we could do as far as advocacy with our data. We are just now getting a handle. As I said, this is a fairly new program, and we've had various, medical record tracking systems that we've used. And so we're still trying to figure out the best system, but that's a great idea. I'm trying to, and we just hired our data analytics director, who has a PhD from UC Merced. So I think we're just building up our capacity to better dive into this data, and also our air pollution data. So we have a lot of data that we have. I think it's been underutilized up until now. So maybe I'll put together an advisory group that can help us figure out what to do with it. But I know that's there's a lot of potential, and I'm just getting a handle on it now and trying to figure out what we do with it. And then on the other part of the question, we, as I mentioned, we do a lot of on the ground work and service provision and outreach and community engagement, but we don't have a ton of capacity yet to do the policy advocacy work that I would like to do. So that's kind of my next step. So once we have the data, then we need people who can take that data and advocate with it.
Right. No, thanks for that. And then my second question related to the Energy Leadership Institute, right, that you talked about, and that is primarily targeted at residents, right? And just like, is that primarily targeted at residents, or is it?
No. So the cohort was actually staff, like paid staff of small environmental justice and grassroots, like other community-based organizations who did not work on energy. But when I came back from working at the PUC, I was talking to a lot of people, and there was just like, energy was this topic that was very nebulous and overwhelming for a lot of people. So I wanted to bring a lot of the information that I learned to more people so that hopefully we can build capacity of our region to have more advocates on various energy issues.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think we need more advocates, right? And was that just a one-time like, or is it more of like continued education and looking for new potential staff to engage?
So that was a one-time cohort that was funded, as I mentioned, through the CPUC's equity, education, and I forget the 3 E's fund, which then I think was cut from the governor's budget. So the next rounds were never funded. We have secured other funding, and we do plan to continue to engage a lot of those groups in a limited way, but kind of in the area that I was mentioning with one of the questions, and making sure that like the communities that they work in are familiar and aware of all these different climate programs that are available to them specifically. So we call that CASA. I didn't put that in there, but Climate Action Solutions Access, Climate Action Solutions Access. So we're building this network of like grassroots CDOs that can help do outreach on a lot of these programs. And for example, we just did the first one in Modesto, the first CASA presentation, talking about all these different opportunities in Modesto. And, we talk about DACAG and other things, electric vehicle programs and everything else to make sure people are aware of them.
Any other? Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Sarah, for your work and for CCAC's work. Hope you guys become the California Asthma Collaborative, because I think your work is needed statewide. But yeah, just sort of riffing off the more advocacy-oriented questions, it occurs to me that, we have a pullback at the federal level of lots of relevant funding. The state is projecting a big budget deficit in ways that can have impacts on funding for programs like the ones that CCAC is able to work on that hopefully move the needle over time on asthma incidents. But I'm curious if CCAC has done any work to sort of estimate the quote unquote cost effectiveness of the different sort of areas of the work, such as, you've seen measurable decreases in indoor air pollution from some of the work you've done. And I wonder if that translates into public health benefits, like cost to the Medi-Cal program at a time when we're thinking about freezing any new enrollment for undocumented people in Medi-Cal under the state's budget revision. So I think the funding question will definitely have life or death consequences for Californians, unfortunately. And I'm just curious what the situation is at CCAC and whether some of your research sort of supports advocacy work.
Yes, I would say that the research does support it, but like I said, we are just in the process now, since we are fairly new in having all this data, in figuring out how to leverage it. And I know our board is very interested in seeing the results, the measurable results of our work, but we haven't quite got there yet. But we are very concerned about Medi-Cal funding and the federal situation. But yeah, I think hopefully we can quickly do some analysis that can make the case for keeping programs like ours and the different parts of Cali, because another part of Cali is also, there's various populations that are prioritized, and housing and unhoused people are another big component of Cali.
Thank you.
Elena and then Jem.
All of this is super exciting, and I also would love to see all of your data. I was wondering, you mentioned, sort of building on some of what Chris said, and I think you mentioned one of your projects was had funding frozen. I was wondering what some of the federal rollbacks either are currently or you are projecting to have an impact on you, and then whether you see a specific role for certain California agencies, including the CEC and PC, to step in and sort of support you in your work.
We have not, we're pretty small organization. And we don't have, like I said, a huge policy team that engages. It's kind of left to me and our program directors.
I guess I'm probably not allowed to ask you.
So
I'm not trying to ask you to advocate for funding as a DACAG member. Sorry, I'm mostly just trying to identify. Yes,
yeah, definitely not that.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the healthcare side, you know, we are concerned, but we are kind of just waiting and to see what happens. I think that there's a lot of there's a whole network of groups that are, you know, well, a lot of people in our state stand to lose a lot if Medi-Cal is rolled back or cut. And I think Fresno County has one of the highest enrollment rates as well. I think 50%. But anyway, so we probably need to increase our advocacy capacity for the coming year. Sounds like that's what I'm hearing from all of you.
Jem, go ahead.
Thank you for all of this. I really love this too. Couple of questions. When you do like your client assessment or your home visits, do you take note of like the high traffic areas around them, like maybe like their proximity to a freeway or railroad tracks or anything like that?
I don't know. I would have to look at our assessment. I know it's an EPA, it's a modified EPA, I think, home trigger assessment. I do believe it's just indoors, but that would be something that would be good to look at. I need to talk to our community health division director about that. She's the one kind of overseeing that. And we do frequently add questions. I think, you know, because we saw the building decarbonization coming, we added questions about the appliances. And so, you know, we are able to add, we don't want to make the visit too long. So we do have to be mindful about that. But I'll inquire about that because I'm not 100% sure if we obviously have their addresses, but that, you know, with HIPAA, we have to keep it private. So we do know generally where they are and if they're in a DAC or not and that stuff. So we could assess some of the outdoor hazards that we might know about, but yeah, thank you.
And then how long do you stay with a client? Like, do you have like 3 visits or 4 visits, or do you follow up like after a year? How does that work?
Our process is evolving, ever evolving. But I do know, and in our pilot, we did we would do a lot of follow-ups. Right now, I think we were trying to keep it limited because we were trying to scale it up to serve as many people as possible. So we were only providing as much follow-up as we could, as the health plans would allow with us to get reimbursed for. But I know we do a 6-month follow-up, and we are considering further follow-ups, but I think it depends on how we can fund that, because it is fairly expensive to have an operation that follows up with thousands of people.
And one last question. When you go in to do like maybe the range hood replacements and things like that, do you have challenges when they're renters as opposed to homeowners? Because I know in some of our programs we had a big challenge with that.
Yes, we do. And I think we have successfully done it. We've actually had a hard time in general with that component because we had a hard time finding contractors who were willing to take on the projects because they were so small, even if we offered them in bulk. And also because of the population, because they are low income and the conditions of the homes are different. So most contractors that we, are more interested in high end type projects. But we have found, I think now, a contractor that's working for us. But when we face the problem of the renter, I think we have a letter that we use that, tries to make the health case. And I think it's been successful in some instances, but I'd have to talk to our team to get more information on that.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? All right. If not, well, thanks again, Sarah, for a great presentation. And yeah, an invitation for the rest of the folks that DACAG members, right, for future meetings. We want to continue, this agenda item in the future, right, and having one of our members present, and so open invitation for a future meeting. So thanks again, Sarah. All right, so with that, then we'll move on to item number 10, which is priority areas. DACAG members will provide updates and announcements regarding any DACAG priority area and associated activities. And we can discuss and revise items related to our 2025 priority areas, including the identification of subject matter experts. So for Chris and for Jem, as you can see, aside from these monthly meetings that we have, where we're all present, we also have, as you see on the slide here, a set of priority areas that we identified towards the end of last year on areas that we both bring sometimes to kind of the whole group, and then others where maybe because of timing or because of issue, we have these meetings with staff with a select members of the DACAG. There's 8 priority areas where you see several subject matter experts already identified. So for both of you, I think as long as there's no more than 5 in those, you're able to then, raise your hand and be added to that list to be able to then be contacted by staff in case they're looking for someone to engage on a particular on a particular issue or item, right, that they want some feedback from DACAG members on. And again, like sometimes that happens because, we may not need to elevate it to a full DACAG meeting, or sometimes the timelines are, they need to connect with someone prior to, when we're going to host our DACAG meeting. So, yeah, so wanted to just first pause to see if there was like any initial interest from Jem or from Chris on this. Not to decide right now. You can just email staff afterwards as well on which ones you might be interested in participating on. But I'll pause to see if there's any questions that we might be able to answer as you work to make your decision. Okay, and if they're not, that's okay. If you go on the website, there should be a list of the priority areas plus descriptions to each of them, right? So you can get a better sense of exactly what we're trying to cover within each of them. All right, so then with that, then why don't we turn to see if there's any updates from DACAG members on any meetings that were held in this past month. Seeing some head nodding here. I didn't have any in this past month, and seems like no one else did either. Okay. All right. Well, that's all right. I will flag for folks that I did get 2 requests, right, for this next month. So I know we're looking backwards, but maybe we can also use this time to look forward, right, to see what's kind of on the table for potential priority area meetings. So the first one that I received is on clean transition. CEC staff has kicked off and accepting comments on their sorry, no, that's not the right one. long-term planning. Sorry. That is a separate note that I was going to make in this priority area, but the request was for long-term planning, for the long-term planning priority topic area group. We want to schedule a DACAG or a meeting with SMEs on Assembly Bill 3, Port Supply Chain and Workforce Report. Staff would like to discuss AB3 requirements and gather DACAG input on outreach and engagement strategies for tribal governments, key interest groups, and the public to inform the strategy and recommendations about seaport readiness, supply chain, and workforce development. So that's one that was received. So flagging it for those that are part of the long-term planning SME group here. The other one I was flagging, or that I started to flag, was not necessarily a request yet, but wanted to flag that it is related to one of our topic areas here on clean transportation. The CEC recently kicked off, and we're accepting comments on the fiscal year 25-26 Clean Transportation Plan. I know we usually get a presentation from them further down when it gets closer to that investment plan being presented at a business meeting. We're just flagging it because, as you all might know, Commissioner Monahan is no longer on the commission. And Commissioner Nancy Skinner has now replaced Commissioner Monahan. And will be taking over what I believe is most of her portfolio. And I don't know if that was already discussed last time with you all, but I just wanted to flag it because I think that was a pretty significant move. And Commissioner Monahan was one of our DACAG liaisons, right, as one of the commissioners there. So I'm not sure if Commissioner Skinner will now step into that role or not, but it is tied again to a topic area of interest with the Clean Transportation Plan. So wanted to flag it for folks. But maybe that's a question for staff. Now that Commissioner Skinner is officially, I think she was finally voted, it was voted on and is now officially the commissioner here. Will she be then sharing responsibilities with Commissioner Gallardo, or are we expecting it to potentially be someone else?
Hi, this is Dorothy here from the Energy Commission, and my colleagues in leadership at the commission can expound further. But at this time, it is we have Commissioner Gallardo as lead commissioner for DACAG, and will be updated later on. So we'll keep you updated if there are any changes to that.
All right. Thank you, Dorothy.
Thank you.
All right. Any other potential upcoming meetings that have been requested that anyone wants to share? Go ahead, Dorothy.
Wanted to tack on there are some other ones that will be coming. So as members, even our newest members, as they choose their priority areas, just keep an eye out for emails coming from us, and also highlighting that as subject matter experts within who are covering any of those priorities, if there's anything that you'd like to reach out to us on as well, that is a priority for y'all within any of these topics, please feel free to reach out as well. And you can, of course, talk amongst yourselves on that matter, as long as, again, it's 5 or less of you discussing that. Thank you.
Thanks, Dorothy. Julia. Oh, we can't hear you.
That's because I'm on mute. I think this would fit in affordability or somewhere else in here, but there's a new proceeding opening at the CPUC on energy efficiency, the mainstream energy efficiency portfolio. And this is sort of what they did, is like close the one that has been going on for a very long time and are just starting fresh with a new one. The order instituting rulemaking came out a couple weeks ago, and I believe the scoping memo is the next step. And I don't have the details of the timing, but it could be an opportunity for us to recommend that the DACAG framework be scoped into the proceeding, just the way that the Environmental and Social Justice Action Plan is scoped into that proceeding. So that might be a topic that we want to discuss at the agenda setting and then bring back to this group.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for flagging that, Julia. And for new members, I know we'll have an agenda topics agenda item shortly, but usually we want to be able, we'll ask folks, we'll ask you all to share any potential agenda items, right, that we want to elevate, that we take back to this agenda setting meeting that Julia, Sarah, myself, and staff are a part of to help shape future agendas. So if things come up, please let us know. Could be in this section, but then again, like I said, there's a specific agenda item where we talk about those potential future agenda items that we want to flag. So, yeah, the only other thing I would flag as we kind of help close this item is kind of bringing it back to the public comments, right, that we heard today, right, on this very specific project that's moving forward, where there's still outstanding community concerns, right, and just kind of wanting to think it out loud here with you all, right, of like, obviously, like, we can't engage on all projects that are out there, but I think in the past when projects have come before us where they've been flagged, I think we've tried our best to try to follow that through, right, to address, to one, acknowledge the time that community members have spent to come and share their concerns, but two, to also be responsive, right, to the community themselves and the concerns that are being elevated or asked of. So yeah, I'm just curious, like, what could potentially be the best approach here, knowing that project is going before a board meeting in June, and there's not a lot of time there for us to potentially do further engagement, but maybe is this something that we flag for staff to look further into and connect with the organization that reached out to kind of hear them through and figure out ways to potentially address some of the concerns that they have, knowing that it's a very tight timeline. But yeah, just wanted to kind of open it up here and see if there's any other ideas or recommendations that we could make, right, to again really address and elevate the concerns that were raised to us today. Go ahead, Sarah.
I was wondering if we think this project fits into one of our priority areas, if the SME could have a meeting with staff and maybe talk about it more or get more information regarding the questions that they had. But I see that I feel like it fits into a few of these, like it maybe long-term planning and electricity reliability and grid planning and just DER. So I don't know which one it would be the best.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the way you guys want to go. But
yeah,
since it's such a short time frame, I think that might be the only route we could take.
Yeah, I could see that being a good next step here, right? Of requesting a meeting on this with SMEs and staff who are helping lead this project, because yeah, I think similarly, like, staff comes to us, right, to ask for these meetings. This is a project that's been identified as a community concern. So, maybe we can make a request to try to schedule that. I think the meeting itself, or the business meeting, is June 11th. So not a lot of time, but potentially some time to try to figure out whether we can schedule something with the staff that's helping lead this project. So would that be, I'm looking here at the priority topics, long-term planning, or, yeah, I don't know, you all help me out here, kind of try to help narrow down which one potentially.
I mean, it's either you and Elena for long-term planning, or electricity reliability, resiliency, and load flexibility. I think those might be the two.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe Chris or Jem may be joining one of these, but you might notice I'm also not on either one of those.
Well,
sorry.
At least we know that if either one of those two, there's Elena and myself are part of both of them. So maybe we go with, maybe it's the electricity reliability group that extends then to Senite. And then maybe this is a question for legal here, right? Knowing that if there are other interested folks in potentially joining a conversation like this, and we can schedule that, can they be invited so long as we keep it under 5 to this conversation? So looking to Vanessa and Renee here.
Ramon, did I hear that? I think the purpose of the SMEs is that they are voluntary. And so if those members choose to join, then they can later. If that's what but the timing, I think, can be worked out, and staff can kind of organize it on this end to make sure that the meeting time aligns with when all of the new members can select which group they would like to join.
Okay. All right. So Chris, I see you added a comment. Thank you, Vanessa. Can you share storage component?
Yeah, just also kind of parsing where it might fit. The scale, the commenters mention sounds like a utility scale project, so not quite DERs, but there's a big storage component. So maybe it fits there because of resiliency, flexibility. Either way, I'll definitely ask to join that working group.
Okay. All right. Well, then what I can do then is follow up then with staff, with Dorothy, to see if we can work to schedule a call with CEC staff who's helping lead the implementation of this project, and then we'll house it under for now under the priority topic of reliability, with the what I seem. And then, in that time, Chris and Jem, if that's of interest, like adding your names to that topic area, right? So then the invitation can be extended in case you're interested in joining that conversation. Does that work for folks? Great. All right. All right. So I'll follow up with Dorothy and team on that. So. Okay. All right, if there's no other updates, then we'll move on to item number 11, which is the LIOB Low Income Oversight Board update. For Chris and for Jem, generally this item is reserved for any collaboration that we've done with the Low Income Oversight Board, which is another advisory group that is active on Public Utility Commission programs. There is nothing to report here except that there is an upcoming meeting that's happening on June 11th. I'm hoping to be able to join part of that conversation just to see where they're at. And then I think in a future meeting, I'm hoping to similarly, like we've been sharing the equity framework, our new updated equity framework, of being able to potentially also do a presentation to the LIOB just to provide them with an update on our priority areas, and then our update again just to try to see if there's any alignment, right, that we can have as agencies both advising the PUC. All right, so with that then we'll move on to item number 12, agency updates and announcements. We'll pass it over to the CPUC.
Hi, this is Zara from the CPUC. I don't have any updates. We have no updates. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Zara. CEC.
Thank you, Roman. So we have just a couple of updates from us. There's a few funding opportunities that we'd like to highlight, and I'll put the links in the chat. So there's a One is a retrofitting existing residential buildings with innovative envelope solutions. And that solicitation is meant to fund research, development, demonstration, and deployment, projects that improve the customer value proposition of retrofit envelope solutions for existing residential buildings. And so I'll put the link there in chat. The deadline for that is June 30th, the submission deadline. And then the next one is a round 2 Community Energy Reliability and Resilience Investment Program funding opportunity, CERI program, as it's commonly as it's known as. So the Community Energy Reliability Resilience Investment Program released a round 2 grant funding opportunity. CERI program funds projects across California that increase community and energy resiliency and reliability, advance state energy and resiliency goals, and create good paying jobs. So there'll be a link in chat that folks can go see for more information on that. And the deadline for that one is August 29th. I would also like to highlight that for the 2025-2026 investment plan update for the Clean Transportation Program, those actually just mentioned, we've published proposed guiding principles that staff will use to develop the 25-26 investment plan update for the CTP program, Clean Transportation Program. The document was discussed at the advisory committee held on April 30th, and I'll put a link to the event page as well that has a recording for that. In the fall, that's when the budget will be finalized. So please feel free, not just members, but everyone on the call, to take a look at the plan, take a look at the information, review the recording, and looking forward to presenting this information. And of course, please comment on this report. Thank you. And then more will come in an update to members in an email. So all of this is usually public-facing information, but we like to curate based on the priorities that DACAG members have listed. We like to curate some of this information for you. So yeah, we'll send that up after the meeting.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, appreciate it. Oh, go ahead.
Apologies. The CPUC does have one yesterday at the CPUC voting meeting. President Reynolds were in Brannon Braley as our new tribal advisor. Bree is Tolowa Dini and grew up in the Pacific Coast in the heart of her tribal territory in Del Norte County. She's dedicated her career to improving the conditions of tribal communities across the country. Bree is a collaborative and systems-oriented leader who advises on tribal sovereignty, stewardship, and well-being. Bree served as the self-governance director for the Loa Dini Nation, advising tribal leadership on government-to-government relations, leading negotiations for partnership development and community benefit. She led an innovative approach to incorporating Indigenous ways of knowing federal and state decision-making for co-management, an effort that she was recognized with the Native American 40 Under 40 Award. And we're very excited to collaborate once she settles in up to speed.
Thank you, Zara. Yes, tribal representative, great. So we'll potentially have a new member next month.
Oh no, apologies. This is the tribal advisor to the CPUC.
Oh, got it. Oh, okay. Sorry. For some reason, I thought it was our tribal representative, but okay.
Yeah. She's replacing Holbrook. Met with you, some time ago and has left the PUC a number of months.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for that update. Abimael, was that your cat or was that I just saw a little animal there?
Yeah, we're sitting my sister's cat while she's traveling. So Yeah, that's why it might seem a little distracted.
Great. All right. Moving on to item number 13 here, agenda setting and attendance. Two items. So want to first just talk to see if there's any agenda setting topics that you all want to raise for us to consider as we do our agenda setting meeting next week. And then the second one will be just on more broadly on attendance and meeting cadence. So we'll start first with agenda topics. So I want to just pause here to see if there's any topics that y'all would like to propose for us to consider for future DACAG meetings. No, Julia already raised one earlier. Elena, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that I had asked previously for an update on the opt-in certification program for under AB 205 and highlight that the project that we received comments about earlier is one of those projects. And so we actually theoretically will have that, hopefully we'll have that on our agenda. Or I'd love to have all of those projects on our agenda and an update on those at some point.
Okay. Thanks for that flag. And I didn't realize that was one of the programs there. So yeah, okay.
At least I think it is.
This is Ryan. I just wanted to confirm that that is in fact an opt-in certification program, and that topic is being teed up for you guys later in the summer. I don't know if that squares with the timing of this specific project, but perhaps we can be nimble with an SME or some other mechanism.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, Ryan. If there's no other agenda topics that y'all want to share, yeah, always feel free to reach back out to staff with anything else that if something comes up, right, in after this meeting, right, to be able to flag it and then potentially raise it and be able to have a future meeting, right, and that could be an upcoming docket or existing docket or a proceeding, right, that's happening that we want further that we want to learn more about or potentially be able to submit comment for. Okay, moving on then to attendance. Oh, go ahead, Dorothy.
Oh, apologies. I just also wanted to flag and first, big thank you to Sarah Sharpe for that presentation. But also, if there any members wanted to present next month or any future months, wanted to put that in or mention that to DACAG leadership. This also is an opportunity to share that, or was, sorry. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely encourage that. So if you're willing and able to, we welcome member presentations. So just moving to meeting cadence and attendance, I think there was a survey that was sent out a couple of months ago, right? Kind of asking about meeting participation and then the cadence of our meeting. So this was like pre your time, Chris and Jem, obviously, but so just wanted to kind of walk through that briefly here with you all in the last few minutes that we have together. We have some upcoming meetings here. And so our next one is on June 13th. We had to change that meeting. We moved that meeting a week up because of the existing one would have been June 20th post Juneteenth. So we're already going to be missing some folks because of the holiday. So now it's June 13th. So in anyways, I think I wanted to just kind of share like that there are the June 13th and we have July 16th, August 15th, September 9th, October 17th. That probably doesn't mean anything. They're just dates that I'm throwing out there because there's no calendar to kind of show it. But I wanted to flag it, right, for folks so that if potentially you're have a potential conflict, right, to be able to flag it for staff, right, to be able to determine whether we'll have quorum to be able to vote on an item or not. So but with that, I wanted to kind of spend more time kind of talking through the meeting cadence. I think we've had this conversation now a couple of times, but I want to kind of continue to have it here around whether it makes sense for us to continue to have these on a monthly basis, right? And whether or if there's a potential to potentially explore what a quarterly meeting would look like. when DACAG was established, I think initially the thought was to move to a quarterly basis, but it became a monthly just because there was so many items, right, that members wanted to cover. So it was easier to meet on a monthly basis to be able to engage more frequently with the agencies. I think we've been having some attendance issues, and so it's made it sometimes a little hard, right, to potentially vote on whether that's a letter or plan. So wanted to kind of pose the question again here with you all, and especially now with Chris and with Jem, around like, is this monthly meeting cadence on a Friday afternoon, the right one, or should we be exploring moving into a more of a quarterly approach? Meaning if we did quarterly though, like the LIOB that meets quarterly basis, they're doing like a full day, right, of meetings, where we try to keep it here to 3 hours, right, on a monthly basis. So yeah, I wanted just to pause real quick and see if there's any additional feedback that y'all might have on our meeting cadence.
It's a tough question, right? Because from a capacity perspective, the monthly meetings, just speaking for myself, are a challenge. And I worry that on a quarterly basis, we will just miss a lot of these opportunities. So there's no good answer. So it's a problem without a good solution. I suppose we could look at some, maybe we meet 8 times a year, maybe there's every other month. Maybe there's some sort of middle ground there that I'd be open to exploring. But I agree that monthly is a significant lift.
Yeah. Thanks, Julia. Sarah?
I had a similar feeling that there's pros and cons to both, where I think monthly virtual is easier. And if it was quarterly, I would maybe try to go in person. So that might be harder, but also easier because it's only 4 times a year. So I don't know. I think I'm mostly challenged with Friday afternoons generally. So I think I'm erring on the side of quarterly, but maybe I like the idea that Julia had of 8 times, so having a few dark months of, like a summer month and then a winter, like all December or something, when there's very hard to find everybody's availability.
Okay. Elena and then Chris.
I think I've said this when this comes up before, but I do find that I think if we work quarterly, we just would miss so many things, right? We already miss so many things because we find out about them too late and don't have a chance to sort of come in and participate. So I'd definitely be nervous about that. I like the idea of having in-person full-day meetings, but we really have struggled for attendance at those. Like that has not historically been a solution. Everyone gets real excited about it when we plan, and then it's limited in terms of who can actually show up.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, I'm coming in with the monthly cadence being normalized, so I've already kind of created space on my calendar every 3rd Friday to block 1 to 4, and yeah, that is a challenging sort of cadence and timing. And during my onboarding, it occurs to me that there'd be a legislative action necessary to preserve our ability to continue meeting virtually, if I didn't misunderstand that. And absent legislative action, we may be required to begin meeting in person. Staff can correct me if I'm wrong on that point. So if that were the case, quarterly would be sort of more supportive there, but certainly take other members' points about how much there is going on and not wanting to miss anything. So I'm also grappling with the interplay between these quarterly meetings and the SME meetings. I'm curious if members are challenged to engage sort of as intensively as we would like to with those SME meetings, and whether a quarterly cadence wouldn't give us more time to sort of dive deeper in those SME meetings in ways that would allow us to then surface some of those items at a quarterly meeting. So this hasn't been a decisive comment so much as wanting to flag what I understood to be necessary legislative action to even preserve our ability to meet virtually, and how that might feed into our decision making on this.
Thanks for that reminder, Chris, because I mentioned 544 at the top, but I didn't realize I went back and looked at the legislative language here, and yeah, January 1, 2026. So that's right around the corner, unless there's additional language, an additional action to extend that, then we are then put in a situation where it would require us to move back to in person. So that's, I think, a good flag for us to consider. I do like this idea of the SME meetings, right? Like they come, and sometimes we have a month where there aren't any requests, and other months where there's like multiple requests, right? So, it's like then it becomes a little bit more challenging with everyone's schedule to try to, fit one of those in. The monthly meeting helps then to hopefully, I mean, we won't have that meeting, but at least keep agenda items moving forward. So, yeah, I took notes on that. But Jem and then Chelsea.
Thank you. I mean, I feel like Friday afternoon, no matter what meeting it was, it would be challenging, because we're almost like 1 foot out the door. So having it to be this long, I mean, just makes it even tougher. Maybe there's some way we could maybe shorten it up or consider moving it or something like that, so that we could still have that engagement monthly. And also being new, I'm like, gosh, I got to catch up. So I'm thinking, I don't want to like make them quarterly now, but I'm sure like that's just like the emotional side. So just wanted to express that though. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jem. And I think we explored at one point, like, what could it look like to move it to the morning even, right? Rather than like a 1 to 4 and maybe 9:30 to 12:30. So, but yeah, we can talk about that further. But yeah, I think all points well taken. Chelsea, go ahead. We can't hear you. I know Chelsea's been having some
I wonder if
connectivity
it's so
issues.
quiet this meeting.
No. Well,
I should type it in the chat and we can read it out loud for her.
yeah, is that okay? Renee, I know there was a message from Renee in the chat.
I know what else needs to,
for technical assistance only. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm unclear whether or not the public can see the chat.
Yeah.
Maybe and maybe Dorothy can confirm, or Zara, who's familiar with this system.
If it has to go to everyone, not just all panelists, for
Okay,
the public to be able
so
to
in
see
this
it.
case, since she is having technical difficulty, Chelsea, why don't you go ahead and use the for everyone feature, and then Roman, perhaps you can read it out for the record.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Julia. No, we're at 4. Could just ask for a couple more minutes from folks here, but thank you, Julia. All right, we'll give it just a minute or so to see if Chelsea. Typing. I think I can see her typing. As we wait for that message to come, I'll just mention that, yeah, I think all the points that you all have shared are well taken, and something that we'll take back to our to the agenda setting meeting to kind of here we go. So Chelsea dropped in the chat, and it's been posted for everyone, but I'm just going to read it out loud. I miss the monthly meetings in situations where there is an external meeting that I have no control over scheduling, such as next month on June 13th. Is her graduation. Congratulations. If we moved to quarterly and an external meeting landed on our meeting date, I then would have several months who have gone without attending a meeting. Is quarterly or monthly the only option? What about every 2 months? Okay, thank you for that. And lastly, can you speak more to the 2026 in-person requirement? So I'll just note that yeah, I think your point is really well taken, right? I think I've had some of those as well more recently, and moving to a quarterly could potentially, you know, if you can't attend, then you're going maybe like a half a year, right, without attending one of these full DACAG meetings. So that is definitely a point that we need to consider. The 2 months, right, I think is what Julia mentioned, right? Like one off, right? And maybe like there's a more focus on that off month of SME meetings that then you know, we are part of. Then I think maybe that second month we would need to extend to be able to provide more time for we might be really talkative, right, that next month. So a lot of variables here to kind of consider. But Elena, I see your hand up, and I don't know if that's a new hand or like the previous hand. Oh, go ahead.
Very quickly, I think Chelsea makes a good point, which is like if you miss one quarterly meeting, you're gone for 6 months, and that is sort of a problem. But I also, what I had put it up for was, I don't have a good sense entirely of who the audience is for these meetings, but I was just wondering if that's something we should think about too, in terms of who is calling in and whether having them have to call in for a day is too onerous, like which makes these more accessible to as many people as possible.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? Because now you're asking for a full day participation potentially in a quarterly meeting rather than I think now where it's 3 hours, give or take, right, for these meetings. So for the 2026 in-person requirement, maybe Renee or Vanessa, if you want to maybe just touch on that, and maybe we can bring this back up at a future meeting. But there was a bill last year, SB 544, which I mentioned at the top, right, that allowed us to continue meeting virtually. Once that expires, I believe, right, January 1st, then we would have to revert back to having in person, right? But Vanessa or Renee, if you want to share more.
Yes, you have it right, Ramon. And so, Chelsea, and for everyone, what SB 544 did, it was one of a series of executive orders and other legislative actions that for a year at a time, or even sometimes shorter than that, starting from COVID, starting from March of 2020, allowed these meetings to proceed virtually with some additional flexibility for advisory meetings like this group to continue to meet virtually. And so that's what Roman is referring to, is the latest installment of these executive and legislative actions sunsets on January 1st, 2026. And unless the legislature this budget season or legislative season acts to either extend it, you know, for some period of time or permanently, then we actually revert back to the rules that were in place prior to COVID. That does allow for some types of what we call teleconference meetings. In those cases, all of you would still need to appear physically in publicly accessible spaces, even though we could be connected virtually via Zoom, like Southern California and Northern California or whatever, Central California. So it just, I mean, the bottom line is it would revert to the original rules under Bagley-Keene, which really don't have the kind of flexibility that has enabled this group to meet virtually monthly for the last 5 years.
Yeah, thanks Renee for that additional context there. But it is a good flag here, right, for us to follow up to see if there is intent of extending you know, this flexibility that we've had. So maybe that's something that in our agenda setting meeting we can talk further about. Okay, I know we're over time, and so I want to be respectful of everyone's time here. So I appreciate everyone's feedback here. What I'll do is I took notes, and I'll make sure to bring that back. And yeah, I mean, I know, like I said, we've we've brought this up a couple times now. I think we've tried to make some progress on it, but want to make sure that we're giving clear direction, right, for you all as we think about, what our meeting cadence is, and then whether that continues as is or if we plan on tweaking it. And then most of all, just really wanting to tie that to our attendance, right, and making sure that we can meet quorum, right, for us on a monthly basis. So thank you all for that conversation. And so I'm going to close this out and move us on to item number 14, which is public comments. I'll turn it over to Zara to provide directions.
Thank you, Ramon. This public comment period is an opportunity for attendees to give comments regarding any matters related to the DACAG or today's agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and we'll alert you when your time is up. All comments will become part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so we can call on you. For those on WebEx, please use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand and then press *6 to mute and unmute. Seeing no one in the room, I'll check WebEx. It looks like Angela has a hand. Angela, you should be able to unmute.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, perfect. Sorry. Angela here with CCJN, closing out today. I just want to thank the opportunity to comment once more related to the Darden project, and definitely public comment will be more targeted towards the electricity reliability subcommittee, which I thank you all for having that discussion during item 10. But yeah, just elevating once more, or just at least like addressing first and foremost, just thanking you all as a body for being very receptive in addressing your comments and questions to the project. It is absolutely appreciated. So thank you for that. I did want to just, put that final reminder here that this is a mega solar project. This is not a very small scale 1 megawatt project. This is a over 1,000 megawatt project. So 3 million solar panels, 9,000 acres of agricultural land. It is definitely very massive and of its kind here in the San Joaquin Valley that we've never seen before. And so while this project in its scale can create a high tax revenue return to the county, especially given also just where it's located, I think there was several questions around how that revenue will be invested. And truly and historically, these revenues and even just historical revenues like in this county have never been reinvested back to community. And still to this day, we do not see direct benefits to the communities here in this county or even maybe across the board. It's per usual that it's always business as usual. And, it's a fight to just ensure that even we can see that benefit on the ground. So the communities that I've highlighted, as well as my colleague had highlighted, El Porvenir, Cantua Creek, 5 Points. These are historical communities that have been always left out of these processes. And many of them, to this day, still need to see meaningful investments in their communities, better housing, better roads, cleaner air, access to critical services, whether that's medically or even in response to emergencies. This still needs to be seen in their area. And so I'm not denying that, SB 100, this was a very historical and critical piece of legislation that will help the state ensure that we reach the 100% clean energy reliability by 2045. I'm not denying that that's like absolutely important and critical. But what we miss from many of these projects and we need to bring this more to light, is that it is creating sacrifice zones that continue to put communities' health and quality of life on the front line to meet these critical goals. And I just think that we need to not miss that. We need to not, you know, allow this to continue to be like to surface with these projects. So many of our communities, sorry, I'm going over time. Many of our communities, we all want cleaner air. We want access to clean water. We want a future that no longer is reliable on fossil fuels. That is for sure. But at the expense of these projects not determining and mitigating those impacts that were highlighted in our previous comments, it's not acceptable, and we need it to be addressed immediately. So just one last time, I just asked for the DACAG and I asked for the subcommittee for electricity reliability to just really put pressure on the CEC to not approve this project until and unless previous comments, concerns that we elevated today are adequately addressed and that community is heard. So just want to thank you again once more. Really appreciate the opportunity to be able to public comment.
Thank you. No more raised hands. I'll pass it back to you, Roman.
Thank you, Zara. Yeah, and thank you, Angela, for those comments and for the rest of the folks who participated today in providing public comment throughout the various items. Yeah, we want as much public participation as possible during these meetings. So, you know, appreciate you showing up and raising concerns that the DACAG should be aware of. We'll make sure to, you know, follow up on this item and hopefully be able to provide an update during our next meeting. All right, with that, then we'll move on to our last item here, meeting adjournment. I want to thank everyone, DACAG members and everyone else who's still online for your participation. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jem. We look forward to, you know, continuing having you be part of this group. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you next month. Take care.